Welcome, folks. We're just getting started. Today, we're going to be covering uh, shaming the Reno media, calling them out on their lack of coverage of the Roger Hillygus and Stewart-Handte case. And then we're going to be talking about Washoe County Jail, horrendous living conditions. So, with all that being said, this is going to be a good show. We got five courageous people speaking out and using their voice to call out this corruption, and I couldn't be more proud to have them with us. So with that being said, let me read the disclaimer and we'll begin. The views expressed on this show are expressly the views of the speaker and do not necessarily reflect the views, beliefs, or opinions of News4US.WORLD, its hosts, broadcasters, or affiliates. Remember, folks, always use your own discernment when viewing. We encourage our viewers to think for themselves. Welcome, everybody. Let me start off by letting Stu talk about what's going on with the lack of coverage in the media in Reno, and because he's with us for maybe another 12 minutes, so I want to let him get an opportunity to speak. Why don't you go ahead, Stu?
Hey, good evening, all. You can hear me, Stephen?
Yes, we can hear you.
Can you hear me? Okay, excellent. Listen, Reno, Nevada has been known for decades to be a corrupt town. A lot of people equate corruption with Vegas, but Reno's been the hidden hotspot or hidden secret place in Reno. Having been in the law enforcement profession here in the state of Nevada for 30 years, most of that in Reno, I'll use the phrase, I know where the dead bodies are buried and who buried them. Thus, the relentless and malicious persecution and prosecution of myself and Roger Hillygus. As it stands of today, I do have a gag order on me, so I can't talk about the merits of the case. But I will say this specifically, we have corruption complacent. We have corruption widespread in the law enforcement areas here in town. We have corruption widespread placed in the district attorney's office. We have corruption spaced in the judicial branch. So with all three branches of being exposed and enveloping and welcoming the corruption, it's very difficult when you take a stand against one of these people, let alone a couple, which I did many years ago when I was a state trooper of the Highway Patrol. I firmly believe, as I'm sitting and talking to everybody tonight, that corruption aspect that I took as a former federal whistleblower has come back to haunt me, and Roger Hillygus as well. You have cops that have been involved in this. You have a district attorney who's been involved in judges. Again, I can't get into the merits, but I will say this. Having spent 92 days in jail, most of that in Washoe County, 85, 7 in Elko, for acts that I did not commit. I can tell you that the jail facility has been overcrowded for many, many years. In fact, when I was a state trooper, the overcrowdedness was told to us about 3 years after the facility opened. Basically, I had supervisors within my organization of the Highway Patrol telling us if you don't have to arrest someone on a misdemeanor traffic violation, don't, because the jail is overcrowded. That being said, I was in the jail. There is no qualified or quantified medical help there. They refused to give me, when my back was out, to see a doctor. It took me to get out of jail to go to a doctor, a chiropractor actually, and after 2 adjustments, my back was back to normal. The medications they dole out, if you kiss their ass, they dole them out. But if you take a stand against them, they will do whatever they want. You're inside their facility. It's basically no different than a concentration camp, except the uniforms are not black. They're green. And these cops up there are dirty. They're corrupt. They've allowed people to walk around the facility injured. I saw a gentleman there with a broken arm, obvious broken arm. I know a little bit about injuries being in law enforcement and also first responder for those 30 years. And I asked him, I go, why aren't you in the hospital? He said that they told him that they didn't have time to take him there. And this was a very obvious break in his arm that could have turned into a compound fracture. I know Roger has experienced vertigo in there. He's also experienced seizures. He's also having problems with his heart. And, I'm going to get down to it, Stephen. His mother's gone. If they happen to have Roger have an unfortunate accident while inside that facility, that's 2 out of 3. I'm the third. And guess what? If you get all 3 parties gone that you've exacerbated corruption against, well, guess what? You don't have to write the check. And the check in this amount, folks, is substantial. We're talking tens of millions of dollars for the civil rights violations, for the violations of federal law, state law, judicial canons of the court, people going back on their own words. And I'm just going to leave it there because I can't, like I said, I can't get into the merits of the case. I just want to lay the foundation for everybody to let people know that as we sit here tonight, July 31st, 2023, my friend and co-defendant Roger Hillygus is suffering inside that ridiculous, disgusting place called the Washoe County Jail detention facility. And Tonja.Brown knows about what's happened to her brother at the hands of the people that are corrupt. Anne.Marie.Grant knows about what happened to her brother at the hands of those that are corrupt. There's 2 brothers that are missing in this world today because of corrupt cops and corrupt district attorneys and a corrupt legal system. And if we don't take a stand against these people, folks, it could happen to anybody that's listening in tonight. It could happen to anybody who listens in down the road. It could happen to anybody that thinks that the legal system out there is meant to protect them. And having said that, as a law enforcement officer for 30 years in this state, I will just conclude my little diatribe by saying, get this corruption taken care of. Stop these people. Free Roger Hillygus. Get this ridiculous, malicious persecution and prosecution of this case dismissed, and identify, expose, and take down those corruptive influences who have killed people and are currently killing my friend and co-defendant, Roger Hillygus. And I yield.
Well said. Real quick, Stu, I want to just touch on the news outlets that aren't doing any coverage in Reno. Which news outlets are those for our viewers?
That is KRNV,
okay.
Channel 4, KTVN Channel 2, KOLO Channel 8. They refuse to, and they have refused to set forth the truth of this matter. They have vilified us through the media, including the Reno Gazette-Journal. Every public media in northern Nevada, Stephen, has basically taken a stance that the information is given to them. And here's a script, KOLO. Here's a script, KRNV. Here's a script, KTVN. You follow that script. You do not deviate from that script, because we're going to show these guys there's the bad guys that they are. And I've gone to all 3 stations, Stephen, and pleaded my case some time ago. And I got the cold shoulder from each general manager. In fact, most of the emails I send out, I carbon copy and send out to the local media outlets. Do you think one of those people would pick up the phone and say, hey, there's some substantial statements in here. Care to talk on camera? Care to do this? There's one guy out of Las Vegas who did a really good story on us at the beginning. His name is Bill Denser from the Las Vegas Review-Journal. Mm-hmm. His story, pretty much, and that's a print story, pretty much told exactly what took place from the factual side versus the lies set forth by the media here in the Reno area, Washoe County specific. We are not going to get a fair trial here, folks, at all, period, end of story. We need to get this case moved. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, which is why we need all of your support, folks. We need to put pressure on these bastards, especially the media outlets that aren't doing their job. We need to shame them. I'm going to put the links to their outlets in the description after the live, so we can have our viewers mass call them if they'd like and call them out and say, why aren't you covering this? Why aren't you covering this? I think a little pressure is way overdue.
I mean, I think because of the always the perceived animosity, I don't think there's a hatred. But, you know, the old north and south, Vegas versus Reno thing. I would love to see the Las Vegas markets shame the Reno markets for not reporting the truth of this. And
that
again,
would be awesome, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that would be awesome. Yeah, because, you know, they get the rivalry between University of Nevada, Reno, and University of Nevada, Las Vegas. That's just a small part of the pie. But what I'm trying to tell you all is that this local media here has been told not to talk to myself or Roger. Of course, Roger's in jail now. Not to report the truth of what really happened. And when we get down to nuts and bolts, I cannot specifically state the nuts and bolts because I really don't want to go back to jail. But there's a few people that are listening in tonight that can't state the nuts and bolts because they're not held to this ridiculous gag order that's been put on me, as well as a GPS monitor that's been attached to my ankle illegally in violation of the United States Supreme Court ruling Grady versus North Carolina 2015. That I can state on the record because that is the truth. And again, the other aspects of this case I cannot get into, but other people can. And all I can say is whatever the other people want to say in regards to the information that they know and are willing to put over your program and your podcast, Stephen, I bless them and say go for it. All
right, awesome. Thank you so much, Stu, for showing up on the live. We really appreciate it. We know it's been a a hard thing for you, especially with that gag order and the ankle bracelet and whatnot. But I think it's time we call these bastards out, and it's good to have you on here.
I appreciate it, Stephen. And there's been a price that's been paid by a lot of people who've lost loved ones, and whether they're relatives or friends. This is a nationwide problem. It's a diabolically sinister problem that's a weaponization of our courts, not only here in Nevada but across this country. And until we knock one of these bastards off the pedestal, and I'm talking about a judge or district attorney, those are the two people you want to get knocked off the pedestal, then every one of us could be facing the exact same thing that Susan Hillygus has faced, that Michelle Nichols has faced, that Casey Kasem has faced, that Britney Spears has faced, that Becky Harbor is facing, Ali Carino is facing with her mom being placed in the assisted care facility against her own will. I mean, on and on the list it goes. And I only throw those out. There's so many more. But folks, when you're listening tonight, spread the word. This corruption has to stop. These people have to be brought down. And if we don't take a stand, then everyone listening tonight could be susceptible to their corrupt ways in a short period of time or a medium period of time. Depends on how long it takes for them to go after your money, go after your assets, and go after your life. And that'll be it. Thank you very much, Stephen. I appreciate the time and the effort tonight. Thank you.
Yeah. Anytime, my friend. Anytime. We're here to help. It's good having you.
Thank you. Take care. Good night.
You too. And with that being said, let's segue into the Washoe County living conditions. Anne or Tanya, either of you want to start off and then tell your guys' story so we can get the information out there so people know how bad it is there in that county jail?
Sure. Hi, my name's Anne-Marie. So I'm from Boston, and my brother Thomas actually had visited Reno in 2015. He was a guest at the Peppermill Casino, and he had a mental health crisis on the casino floor. He asked security for help, and the help that he received was for Reno police to show up and hog tie my non-combative, non-aggressive, 140-pound, 5-foot nothing, mentally ill brother who was simply asking for help. He was then dumped at the Washoe County Jail, still hog-tied after over 40 minutes. That part is all on video. He begged the deputies for medical attention, told them he was going to die, told them that he couldn't breathe, told them that he had had major lung surgery, which he had had a collapsed lung prior, told them they were going to kill him. It haunts me to this day hearing my brother scream out that you guys are going to kill me. Please don't do this. Please don't do this. And sure enough, they put my brother face down, still hog-tied. And rather than value the sanctity of human life, they valued property over human life. And instead of cutting the hog tie off of my brother, they, put him face down. 4 deputies got on his back and asphyxiated him to death. My family didn't get the truth until I did a public records request and got the actual video. They told us my brother, the jail told us my brother just suddenly stopped breathing and was talking crazy. Apparently to the Washoe County Jail, crazy talk is begging for medical attention and begging for decency and humanity. And there was nothing in the media in Reno for over 2 years as far as my brother's murder at that jail. And my brother was one of 3 men asphyxiated within a 1-year period at the Washoe County Jail. And there was nothing reported in the media about it, like I said, until 2 years later. I have myself and other impacted families in the Washoe County area have a annual protest. This will be our 6th annual protest on Saturday, August 5th at 1 p.m. at the Bruce R. Thompson Federal Courthouse in Reno, 400 South Virginia Street. We're demanding that Attorney General Aaron Ford open an investigation into not only the Washoe County Jail's pattern and practice of unconstitutional violations, but also the Washoe County DA's office for their pattern and practice of withholding exculpatory evidence, as they're doing in Roger Hillygus and Stewart-Hante's case as well. So ever since my brother died, I've been advocating for change of that jail. It was through a public records request that I had put in, thanks to a suggestion from Tonja Brown, who's also on the live stream, suggesting that I look into the occupancy limit at the jail, because we've been getting reports that they have been putting men, 3 to 4 men in a cell. And, as Stuart mentioned, it turns out that nobody in the entire county has any idea of the occupancy limit, fire occupancy limit at the Washoe County Jail. And it doesn't seem that the media is concerned. There was one small local media outlet that did run the story. But you would think that where those men at that jail and women have yet to be, most of them, convicted of a crime and are simply awaiting their day in court, and they have the right to leave that facility alive. And it's called care in custody, not kill in custody. The first word is care, and they have a duty to those individuals. But because the media refuses to report on it, they continue to get away with it.
Yeah, it's really similar. I've noticed that, especially with prisons and even jails, it's like they won't even lift a finger to even do the bare minimum. Like, for example, I hear a lot of times they won't even do an X-ray on a person if they have back problems or back pain. They'd rather put them on a painkiller, if anything, because it's cheaper for them to do it that way, which is completely unconscionable. But it's what they're doing in a lot of cases. And then even worse in most places.
Yeah, and again, Roger, that's exactly what's going on with Roger. He has actually been designated with, ADA designation by the jail, which is the American Disabilities Act. And they have refused since, I think has been incarcerated since October, to provide a simple magnesium supplement that would help with his personal health issues that he has, and also to even provide the proper hydration that has to be taken with the medications that he's supposed to be getting. We need people to call the jail and do actual wellness checks and let them know that we know what's going on there, and we're not going to be quiet about it, because as long as they're allowed to operate with impunity and people aren't calling them out on it, it's going to continue. And as you said, it is a widespread problem, and it seems like there's more oversight with the prisons than there are with the county jails, in my opinion. But not that the oversight is great. It's like the fox guarding the hen house anyway.
Right. It's maybe a little bit better, but not much.
Right. Exactly.
Do you want to maybe get into your a little bit background on maybe let Tanya chime in too and jump in with so we can kind of give people an idea of just how bad the facilities are there and just how much people are mistreated that are there, because I think it's important that people know about this.
Well, I was actually there today in person. I told them I wanted to make a complaint about the inhumane treatment and gave them the specific examples, because we just had a gentleman who had reported he has extensive knowledge of sex trafficking in northern Nevada, and he's divulged information over the phone, and they've made sure to target him. They have him back in age 17, which is the mental health unit, where they keep them locked down 23 hours a day. I think it's more than that. I think at his last call, they're letting him out 1.5 hours every other day. That's just inhumane, first of all. It is the mentally totally ill in that way. That's not how you help someone who has mental health issues. If anything, that exasperates the issue. He also said, they have feces all over some of the cells, not by the people who are living in them, but as they, are assigned them, that there's feces. They report it. They file grievances requesting medication, and they're just denied. I was there today to file a complaint about this, and the sergeant who came down tried to tell me that NAVCare, we don't control the medical portion of this. It's an outside vendor. I said, your sheriff is the one who recommended to the county commissioners to renew NAVCare's contract after over 14 plus community members, including my brother, died within a 2-year period at that jail, and they were the medical vendor. And doesn't it just so happen that NAVCare donated $10,000 to the current sheriff 2 weeks before general election, and then their contract was up for renewal? And even though people had died under their watch, they still chose to renew the contract with NAVCare. And all you have to do is Google NAVCare, and you'll see how many people have died at the facilities that use NAVCare as the medical vendor. But to deny that the sheriff had any type of oversight over this agency is absolutely ridiculous. That sheriff, his office is in the facility, and I can guarantee you, because we've asked people who are at the facility currently, he doesn't ever walk through that facility to talk to the people there, and he should be. He just allows free rein for his deputies to abuse verbally and psychologically and physically the people who are there. Roger, again, I mentioned he is ADA designated. He was in a wheelchair. They are targeting him with searches, targeting his cell, searching his cell. He couldn't stand up for a search. They forced him to stand up. He fell over, slammed to the ground. I believe he had some sort of convulsions at that point. They never treated him. Instead, they picked him up, threw him back in the wheelchair, and then the sergeant proceeded to hyperextend his leg up over his head to continue the search. I've heard of a man that was brought in, and he was locked in the cell naked in the restraint chair for over 12 hours, no blanket, nothing, and that facility is freezing cold. They will not provide any type of extra warmth. They're using the infirmary at the Washoe County Jail as their torture chamber, basically. If you go to the infirmary, it's like being in the torture chamber. Roger, again, he's in a wheelchair, so he needs to use a ADA shower, and the only ADA shower is in the infirmary, and he is subjected to humiliation, even to take a shower. Because he asked for a shower, he was locked down for 4 hours for asking.
Wow.
He's been told, he's been told if he doesn't verbally request a shower every day, he won't get it. It's on him to verbally ask for it. And it's my understanding is a total of 10 people at the facility that have ADA designation. So there's actually a man that's a quadriplegic that has been denied the showers as well.
Oh,
and
wow.
That creates a target on someone's back when no fault of their own, but when they start to smell and they're in confined, close quarters with other people, people lose their patience because of the pressure they're under due to the facility and the sheriffs and the deputies and the abuse they're receiving. And it creates issues that end up causing the people to be further abused by the deputies. That's their go-to then, that they can actually really go at them physically and assault them and get away with it. But I also forgot, the man who was in the restraint chair was also tasered in the head with a taser inside the facility. Yep. And I tried to reach out to the ACLU Nevada. I reached out to the ACLU Nevada along with Matt and other advocates, and they told me that they're not doing any new intake.
Of course not. How convenient for them.
We've got an uphill battle, but we need people to unite, and together we can make changes so that people don't have to die unnecessarily like my brother.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's crazy how the stuff plays out. I mean, because like my mother, she was injured by you know what I'm talking about. They were trying to push these last couple of years. We're on YouTube. I don't want to say it. So, but long story short, she was neglected at the care facility she was at because she had lost her ability to walk. And, we went, pushed, try and file a lawsuit with the pro bono lawyer that took the case. He said we had a solid case. Guess what? About right before the statute of limitations expired, he calls us out of the blue and say, "Oh, sorry, the case has no legs," which doesn't make any sense. But I mean, at the time, I already had a feeling. I knew their next step was going to be, to do what they've done to many other elderly folks, like the guardianship stuff. And first thing I did was get that medical POA situation taken care of and legal and done, because I knew that was going to be their next step. God forbid if I hadn't done that, my mom could be very well in the same position right now.
Yep. Well, the police and the Washoe County DA's office use the media to their advantage. like they've done to try to ruin Stewart's credibility, a police officer of 30 years, Roger, a firefighter who served his state. The police, when they kill somebody in Washoe County, they immediately release the police narrative, and the media releases it, and then you never hear any follow-up or any real in-depth investigation into it. Everybody just takes the word of the DA that things are as he said, that's how the situation occurred. And
and nobody's.
It's real.
Oh, go ahead.
Yep, go ahead. Sorry. Nope. I
was going to say,
ahead,
and it's almost like the media is running cover for them.
It does. It feels like that. It absolutely does feel like that, because if the media was fair, they wouldn't be giving Stewart, the silent treatment and not giving him any type of coverage. It's not fair to run a one-sided narrative and then expect somebody to get a fair trial when you run the game through the mud.
That's not due process.
And then to put a gag order on the defendants, but the media or the judge or the DA, they can say whatever they want, but the two gentlemen that are fighting for their freedom don't have that right.
Yeah, that's total bull. It's not at all how things should be. I mean, the real thing here people need to understand is these corrupt judges and DAs, they're persecuting innocent victims to cover up their own crimes, folks. Okay, that's what we need to understand, and it's just a sign of the times that we're living in. It's just I never imagined we'd be facing censorship or people suppressing freedom of speech in America, but here we are, And I mean, just sharing out this live on Facebook, your account is restricted for sharing it to too many groups. Apparently, I violated their terms and community standards. They only do this on certain shows, not every show, but they've done it twice now on a show that I've covered, Stu and Roger's case. So that's interesting.
Yes,
I thought our audience would want to know.
Yep, another live stream also. It is particular cases, and they are vested in ensuring we can't have. They don't want what Stewart and Roger did. Roger went and saved his mother. If my mother was being mistreated, I would surely do the same thing. And I don't understand anybody who claims they wouldn't.
Right.
Yes. But
no, I did the same. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. No.
No, I was going to say, I had to do the same for my mother when she was at the care facility that neglected her and caused her to get bed sores. She called me and was like, Michael, can you get me out of here? I'm afraid I'm going to die. They haven't changed me or left me, had been turned me, and she was developing a sore which is close to her tailbone. And oh my God, it was horrible. So I reported them to the Department of Health and Human Services, and that got her home real quick. Thank God. But
thank God. I know.
I hear this stuff all the time.
Families who are not fortunate. Yep, I know there's been some other families, they have reported situations like this, which I'm sure, I do believe Roger filed several complaints with, Adult Protective Services. I'm not sure the exact name of it in Nevada, but Roger took all the appropriate steps to try to protect his mother, and now he's facing 60 years for it. But I will yield the rest of the time, because I know there's some other great advocates on here that have some really great input and things to say
definitely.
about this. So
I'd love to hear from you, Tanya, if that's all right. If you're here with us, if you can hear us.
Hi, yeah, this is Tanya. I just want to just kind of echo the comments made by Anne-Marie and Stewart. I really can't say a whole heck of a lot. They pretty much said a lot of it, what I would like to say. But I've been dealing with this for 35 years. Now, this doesn't have to do with a guardianship or a loved one, but it does deal with law enforcement. It does deal with our district attorney, or the district attorney in Washoe County, or in several of those district attorneys over the 35 years. Briefly, my brother was wrongfully convicted of a crime he did not commit. Over the years, through investigative work I've done, and things that have come out, even in the public, thank you to the media. I was fortunate enough to get the media to cover numerous stories, dozens and dozens of stories over the years, because they started to look into this case. They realized the guy was innocent. And as a result, the arrogant son SOB, Dick Gamak, had made a comment regarding some missing DNA, and that led the district court judge in Washoe County to have the DA turn over the entire file in the case. When the case was turned over, the handwritten notes of the prosecuting attorney were in there. It showed he never turned over any exculpatory evidence. Everything was hidden, so on and so forth. And so just as his attorneys were getting ready to file motions for bail and new trial, my brother passed away. He passed away from lack of medical care. So yes, the prisons, when it comes to the jails and the prisons and the medical treatment, the inmates get treated better than that of the county because they're more governed by the state and
Right.
under the counties by that. But you talked about changes. I'm going to give you a few examples of what some of the changes, and they're easy changes. And you know what? I'm going to tell you, don't ever give up. It's taken me 35 years, and I have an announcement I can make because I haven't said it to Stuart, and I do believe Allie may know. Over 35 years, I finally got the Nevada Pardons Board to have a discussion for September, to hold a hearing to discuss whether they're going to hear factual innocence, posthumous pardons. And if that's the case and they pass it, my brother's case will go before them, and then he can be legally exonerated posthumously. Don't ever give up. In the process of these years, I've gone on to help others, and there are changes. And here's some of the changes, and it's real simple. If you believe that there is some type of an injustice, it doesn't matter whether it's a guardianship and the treatment, you need to make people aware of it. And the best way to make people aware of it is start writing letters to the editor about the conditions. And then eventually, after a while, people are going to start looking into it. Go to your legislators. Get laws created for the better so things like this don't have to happen. And that's something else that I've done. I'm also with Advocates for the Inmates and the Innocent, and so is Anne-Marie. She's a board member. So things like this that we've done, she's also done a lot of legislation to get created and even stopped when it was dealing with law enforcement, the jails and stuff like that. So she's been successful. People can do that. You don't think you have the power, and sometimes you keep having to come back and back because, like a senator said to me 2 years ago during the last day of our 2021 legislative session, he gave me this compliment, which I wasn't expecting. And he said, you kept coming in, we thought you were crazy because you kept coming back year after year. We started to listen to you and things started to change. And he says, you don't realize this, but based on what you have said over the years, we have created good legislation because of you. And some of this you are not even aware of. So your voice matters. You are the public, and they have to listen to you. So start with your letters to the editor. You have problems with the jail? Go there. Go to your county commissioners like Ann. I told Ann, go to the county commissioners and start voicing it. So she'd call in, she'd go. She does this, even though she doesn't live in her state. This is something that you can do, and it does help, and it does make changes. And then again, eventually down the road, something will happen. And then it'll make those people who didn't do anything liable because they knew and did nothing. And you might want to start putting that out there too and make them think about it. But yeah, start with your letters to the editors. Go and listen to whether it's a Zoom video, call in to your legislators during this legislative session, meeting with your legislator. And it doesn't matter whether you live in that district or not. You know what? You can just say, I have a family member that lives in your district, and let them be known. Ann calls from Boston. They listen to Ann. Right, Ann? Yep. So, yeah, you can do changes like that. For those who want to know more, like I said, the difference between the jails and the counties. Now, Ann did mention the occupancy, and I kind of learned this through my brother who was incarcerated and dealing with the medical. When there's a medical situation, they know it, and it's so hard to get the courts to say, yeah, they violated your rights in difference. So what you can do is think outside the box. Think of something that will affect the county because the prisons, they are held to a standard, that of a hospital, okay? Because they have a hospital facility. So that means if they are urgent care, a doctor's office, a hospital, they have to be licensed. The same way with the jail. If they have an infirmary, they have to be licensed. And they have to be inspected. They're not inspected by the county. They're inspected by the state. So these are some of the areas that you can look at and call your state representatives who oversee the hospitals and the licensing divisions and say, there's a problem, here's where the problem is, give them the information, have them go in as a regular routine, and then ask if they look into that area that you're getting the complaints about. And then they'll veer off and say, now we want to see that. And that's where they find where the violations are. Also when she talked about the occupancy, when I was talking to Anne, I told her, I said, the medical, I get it. I feel for these people, but not a whole lot's going to change. I said, you're going to have to change and bring attention. And I said, why don't you find out what the occupancy is of the Washoe County Jail? Because that's when the fire department comes in, and that's a safety issue. They care more about the safety issue of a fire, and a fire broke out, than they do about medical. So I'm just saying, these are some of the things that you can do. And if you want to know some of the things that I've done, and some of it's kind of funny, but it's not funny, but I'm not afraid to take on any of these people. Our Nevada Supreme Court justices, they know I don't take any crap from them. The AG, I put him in his place. And the governor, well, not this new governor. I haven't had my dealings with him, but don't be afraid to say what you have to say.
Right.
You know what? They work for us.
Right, exactly. They're our employees. Our tax dollars pay for their salaries, folks.
Right.
Doesn't that piss you off that they're using it and misusing our funds to commit criminal acts? That pisses me off enough to freaking want to fight, and it just makes me want to fight more every time I see it.
It does, and I've been fighting for this for 35 years. And then Anne-Marie says, "Well, how can you do this?" Because I've been dealing with it for so long, and sometimes you've heard the saying, kill them with kindness. That really pisses them off more than anything. If you're really nice to them and they just walk away with a smile, it irks that and ruins their whole day.
Oh yeah, they hate that. I noticed that too.
They hate that
too.
Yeah, but you said it, you got it, and you just ruined their day. So there are simple little things, but you can do a lot of good out there. And like I said, we've actually got a nonfiction book called "To Prove His Innocence" out, and it's the story and the corruption that went on within the Washoe County District Attorney's Office. Now today, Anne-Marie and I were down at the Washoe County Jail, and I had filed a police report last year, an incident report, and guess what it was about? It was to have an investigation. It was a request to have the Nevada Attorney General, Aaron Ford, look into the Washoe County District Attorney's practice and policy of the CIC, which is the Conviction Integrity Committee, which looks into wrongful convictions, on the practice and policy of withholding evidence in cases. Those who prosecutors who withhold evidence in cases are treated differently. If you file the complaint and ask for a review with their Conviction Integrity Committee, and you claim Brady violations, withholding of evidence, you get no review. If you do not claim prosecutorial misconduct, you do get a review. And that is bias and prejudice, and it is wrong and illegal. So we've asked to have the Attorney General's office look into the Washoe County. And if that happens, we're hoping down the road that they'll do it. And if it does, it can open up cases by some of these prosecutors who've withheld evidence in cases. And there's no doubt in my mind that they have done this with Stewart. There's no doubt in my mind that they're withholding evidence with Stewart. Yeah.
Yeah. Not only is it illegal what they're doing, it's a complete conflict of interest. People in those positions are not supposed to be biased in any like that. But it makes sense if they're criminals. Of course, they're going to try and cover it up.
They are the criminals, and they get away with it because they protect their own. I've had Anne-Marie busting up laughing on some of the stuff I've done in front of the commissioners and city council in Reno, Washoe County. Some of the stuff that I've said, because Carl Hall is the city attorney. He was also the ADA back in 92, 93, who sat on the perjury complaint against Shelley O'Neill, who is now a sitting judge in Reno. Okay. And then he laughed about it in 2019 during a protest that Anne-Marie was having down at the courthouse on I think it was about the third annual, and admitted that he withheld the exculpatory evidence and laughed about it and drove away. I filed a police report on that, and I brought it before the city council and the commissioners, and Carl's sitting right there. And I'm just nailing his ass, and he can't touch me because it's true. But I'll tell you this, somewhere down the road, when one day I get my brother exonerated, they will be held accountable, and they will, and hopefully be prosecuted. Because under the NRS statutes that we have, they can be held liable, particularly if it leads to someone's death. And I'm claiming they murdered him because they knew what these officials had done. They kept quiet, and because they kept quiet, an innocent man died. Doesn't matter whether he died from lack of medical care or not. He never would have been in that position because he never would have been in prison.
Right. And the reason he was in there was because of the corruption.
Correct. I mean, we're going back to 1991 when Shelley O'Neill commits this perjury. She wanted to protect her career, and she lied. And they have issues with that because I actually found the prime suspect, the perpetrator of the crime, 23 years later. And so, I mean, I have all of this. So, and I've been actually, Anne-Marie and I have been putting my brother's case, Nolan Klein's case, on trial before the Pardons Board since the law changed. Voters voted for it on the ballot question 3 on the Pardons Board to have 4 hearings per year. And so we've been putting his case before the Pardons Board, which is all 7 Supreme Court justices, the Attorney General, and our governor. And so, except for we have 3 new members and the governor is new now. But so we have been putting his case on trial. And I know that they're tired, and they know I'm not going away. So I think, yes, on September 20th, 2023, the Pardons Board will have the discussion. They will vote to have Pardons Board held for those who have passed away, maintaining their innocence, and given us, the family members, the opportunity to continue to exonerate their names. And once that happens, I will be able to exonerate my loved one's name. And but they know I'm not going to go away. The legislature knew I'm not going to go away. These people know I'm not going to go away. Just like Stewart.
You sound like a fighter, like all of us on here. Like, I love that because, we're all the same way. We're not backing down.
But there are things that you can do. I've learned it the hard way, but I know that if you start writing some of these letters to the editor and saying stuff like that, people start to listen. I had an investigative, he wasn't an investigative reporter at the time, but he kind of was. He was with the Nevada appeal. His name's Troy Anderson. He did a story, an in-depth story on this case back in 1993, and it broke it up. And after he had done that story, people started asking questions if this man was really guilty of this crime. I think he's innocent. It was a discussion for people who were on parole during their meetings about that story, talking about this case. I mean, it went wide. And I've had local and the Associated Press pick up this story. Troy Anderson later went on to become nominated for a Pulitzer Prize when he went to work in California for a newspaper in California. He's very reputable. So, I mean, these are some of the areas that you can look at. If you can get a reporter, someone who's willing to sit down and just show it to them and say, listen, something's not right here. Here it is. And there was an investigative reporter. And let them look into it and write those stories. Eventually, they'll start doing it. When you got these letters to the editors coming in, especially if it's more than one. So if you think that there's a facility out there, the way that it's being done on the guardianship, start writing your letters. Get your laws changed within your state. Those are some of the changes that you can do. I hope this helps.
And yeah, no, absolutely it does. And there's a lot more you folks can do too. Like we all have the computers in the palm of our hands with internet access. Here's something very simple, and everybody that's watching can do. Share out the show, help get the word out. There's a lot folks can do. Start looking into this information, start digging, start cross-referencing what you can find. And there's like a rule of thumb I always like to use. If you can verify a piece of information from several different independent sources, then the likelihood of it being true is far more closer to true because of the cross-referencing and being independent. And I've learned that in my own research and investigations.
Yeah, and I totally get that because that happened to me. You would not believe how far the district attorneys, Washoe County district attorneys, went to discredit me. And it looks so bad. And then to be hit, all of a sudden being on an interview, and then they say, oh, well, he said this about you. What do you have to say about that? And it's like, boom. And then you come back and it's like, oh, so he did.
Right.
Yeah, here you go. You document. You make sure I can say everything that I can. You know why? They don't touch me, and I've never been sued. Our book, To Prove His Innocence by Mary Elizabeth Morgan, we have never been sued. You know why? Because it's true. It's backed up by documented proof. They can't touch me.
They can't, Suka, and they know it. And
And it scares the heck out of them. And they know, and I'm telling you, they cringe because you don't know. It's like this old saying, not an old saying, but what people used to say about me when I would come in, it's like, oh, she's here. I wonder whose head's on the chopping block today. Who's she going to nail today?
Right. Dottie, you want
Okay?
to tell our guests just what they told, what a couple lawyers or people involved in your area had said about you regarding bruising egos? I think she'll get a kick out of this one.
Oh, yeah. So a couple of girls I've met out of the same courthouse going through the same ordeal.
Your mic's a little low, Dottie. Get closer to the mic.
Sorry. And I was talking with them, and they went back and told their lawyers that they had met me, and they were all told to stay away from me. And the one lawyer told the girl that I was bruising egos.
Good for you, right?
Right.
Yeah. Kick them in. Yeah. Yeah. It's great. Don't be afraid of them. I'm not afraid of them. I have been beaten up. I've had to have shoulder surgery because of things that I believed in. And when the courts, this is in Carson. My crime didn't even in Carson City. This didn't even occur in Carson City. My brother's crime. But everybody is well connected. Everybody is well connected because we're only like 30 miles away. But I've had the district attorney, like I said, go and publicly lie about this case. In fact, Anne-Marie was on the phone. This was just before COVID hit. And this guy comes in, a retired cop by the name of Jim Gibbons. And he runs the Reno police history. So this is something that you might want to go to. I mean, feel free to.
The name sounds familiar.
Reno police history. He runs that. He went to the legislature and made up a bunch of crap about me in front of the advisory commission that was chaired by the Chief Justice, the AG, senators, assembly people, parole, there's like 17 members, right? And he made me look so bad. But I sat there and I listened to it. And they all looked and gave me the evil eye and stuff like that. But you know what? And I wasn't going to go back. And I really didn't go back and because I had my time to speak. And he came after me. But all this crap. But I did present afterwards, and we did send information on that. But that was hard to get over. But you know what? It's just things like that happen. They will do things like that to you. And it will bother you and make you very angry. But sometimes you have to just say and let it go.
Right.
Let it go. Because you can have another opportunity. He only showed up the one time. I'm very, and Anne-Marie and I we consider ourselves as advocates. We are advocates, and we are well respected by our legislative members, both Republican and Assembly side. They may not like what we have to say, but they respect our opinion, and sometimes they will vote for what we say, and it's because we give a good reason why we should have this law or why we should not have this law. And they may not like us, but they respect us. And they know particularly with me compared to some other advocates, if I bring something to them, they know that it's true because I've never said anything. And believe you me, I've been called on it. I was called on it in 2007 by Senator Mark Ampere, who is now our congressman in Washington, D.C. He called me on it. And he requested that I provide this documentation. Otherwise, I was going to be prosecuted for perjury. I brought all those documents down there, and I was pissed off. Let me tell you, I was pissed off. And I brought those documents down there.
I would have been too.
And I gave it to him, right? And then that SOB at the time refused to put it onto the public record, right?
Of course they did.
I get with perjury. And so you know what I did? I wrote a letter to him and then I sent it off to the chair and the Speaker of the House and every member of the legislature. And I said, here it is. These are the documents. I want these documents on the record. And they put all that stuff on that I testified to. You're not going to call me on that and have me come down, threaten me with perjury,
right?
And not present the evidence and then not use it and bring it. No way, not happening. So they had that right up, and it was up there. And it was up there for many, many years.
Good for you. Then you forced their hand. It looks like in that case, and that's the kind of stuff we all need to be doing, folks.
Sometimes you have to force their hands. If you know the truth, then don't ever sway from it. Don't back down, back away from it temporarily. And the other thing, don't let it eat you up. Don't let it destroy your family, your marriage or anything else. Sometimes you have, they got that anger. You have to step back, and you have to spend time with your family. And I learned that the hard way.
Yep.
I remember just a few years ago, my kids are like, my son's 38, my daughter's gonna be 40. And it was probably about 5 or 6 years ago. She says to me, we were sitting here having a conversation at the house. They don't live with me, but we were having a conversation. And I said, they were talking about my brother's case and stuff. And I said, I said, you weren't there. I said, what are you talking about? I was always there. I went to this. I was there. She says, Mom, you don't get it. You were there, but you weren't there. He was always on your mind. He was always this. And I learned that, and it really hit hard. So when I talk to people like Anne-Marie and others, so you got to remember, you will drive people away if you keep doing it. Keep it, it's good, but you should take some time, set it aside for your family, for your loved ones.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
Otherwise, it will destroy you. And do you really want that or your loved ones to know that? Because of the anger that you have and you're fighting for this justice for them or for yourself, that you want that to destroy love that you have, or the people have the love for you. Sometimes you're not giving it up. You're just taking a step back and you say, okay, I'm not going to discuss it. I don't discuss most of the stuff with my husband. And we've been married almost 45 years because it took a toll on our marriage.
Right.
And sometimes that's
and
what
I
I'm
imagine
saying.
it would.
Right. And so it's the same way, but don't ever give up on it. Don't stop it. So I do things outside. I do the legislative. I do all of this stuff. And when I come home, I just tell them a brief thing of what happened, and then that's it. But it's not every day, 24/7. I mean, it will tear you apart. It will eat you up. And I'm just saying, sometimes you have to enjoy life. You have to not let it consume you, but enjoy life and let it consume you by half.
Right. You can't let it consume you. Like this is really heavy subject matter, and it's a lot, and it really does drain people, especially family members, because I find that when I'm talking about it to certain, to friends, family, sometimes like I see that they're getting overwhelmed and aren't quite sure how to process it, and to some degree are like, what, I need shut, they go into shutdown mode. And so, it does affect others around, and so you have to be mindful
and a
of
lot
that,
of people don't
especially
realize
with family.
Yeah, and they don't realize that, or you don't realize how it's affecting them. But I'm just here to say, sometimes you're not giving up. You're doing it, but you're doing it without involving them, and you will have such a better life. You know what I mean? If you don't, but they're there for you. If you need them, they're going to say, you know what? I'll be there. I need you. They're going to show up. They're going to be there. It's only if I ask.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
I haven't for the years. So yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm just hoping that this can help you. Losing a loved one, watching them go through that and how they're being destroyed and the guardianship and stuff like that. It's horrible. And it should not happen. And people should not have to go to prison for trying to protect their loved ones. They shouldn't. And if you know what I mean, but it's happening. And I think in Washoe County, what they're trying to do is they absolutely want to make a case against Roger and Stewart on principle only. And that is, you can't do what you want. And even though you think you're following the law, and as far as I'm concerned, they're doing what they should have done. Okay. But they don't want to be shown wrong. And so I'm thinking, that's kind of me. But I've seen what Washoe County will do and stuff like that. And they're going to try to wear them down. And not just them, but anybody who goes up against them and tries to prove that they are wrong, they will wear you down. They are going to try to break you. And that's what they're trying to do with Roger and Stewart. This is what they're trying to do. And this is wrong. And good for them if they want to put up the fight.
How much did they try to wear you down, Dottie, in your case? Because I know they put you through the ringer with your CPS case and with your family court case, I mean. Dottie, unmute yourself.
Yeah, they put me through the ringer for I've been in court since like 2019 from the the whole case, but the criminal side of it, they really ran me through it for like 2 years on the criminal, and then they dropped the charges.
Okay, because the statute of limitations was up.
No, I was
hey, you're gonna love this.
I was gonna put the judge on the stand, and because I wouldn't lawyer up, and I my accuser was my family court judge that trafficked my daughter, and I was demanding that she get on the stand, and they didn't know what I was gonna say. And I stayed in my personal capacity. I didn't let them make me into that fictitious corporation. I didn't let them represent me in court. So
basically they had nothing against you. They had to drop it.
well, yeah, and they didn't know what I was going to say to a jury about her trafficking my child, because that was the whole reason we were there.
Right.
And
they
they
don't
were
want
going to have
that.
to put the judge on the
But
stand.
rather
She
it go-
basically backed him into corner. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, go ahead.
No. I was just saying that she backed him into a corner and forced their hand by putting them in a position where they'd have to put the judge on the stand.
Yeah, and you never want to put a judge on the stand ever.
No, they didn't want to do
because
that.
if it happens once, it can continue. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
they didn't want her on the stand, but she was my accuser, and
Yep.
I have the right to face my accuser. So they would have had to put her on the stand, because she was between her and I, we were the only ones with firsthand knowledge. So if they were going to convict me, they had to have, because she didn't even have anything on the record. They arrested me on hearsay and everything else. And 2 years later, we're a week before trial, and she still has nothing on the record, and they withdrew.
Yeah, because if she's not willing to testify, they have no case.
Exactly. So it was
Good for you.
Yeah, it was just I don't know, like, people were scared. They're like, "Are you sure you want to do that?" And I'm just like, "Yes." And I stood in what I thought and believed, and I stood on my truth, and my foundation was solid, and I didn't back down, because they're waiting for you. If you call them out, they're waiting for you to back down. They're waiting to, like, psych you out, like,
Right. So you got to call their bluff. Yep.
Exactly. And as soon as you act like, okay, I'm not, that's when they come after you. They get you really good then.
Can I ask you, did you file any kind of a civil litigation against them for wrongful arrest?
Not yet. They just
Is there
withdrew
a
the
statute
charges
of
like 2
limitations
months
on that,
ago.
too?
Like, not even 2 months ago. And my dad just passed away last Monday. So, and I was taking care of
I'm
him
sorry to hear that.
the last 2 months of his life. He was with me. So, and so, like, they dropped the charges, and then, like, right after the charges got dropped, my dad moved in with me. So I haven't gotten there, because I've been writing court documents. I'm just kind of stuck in what I'm doing. I'm not a lawyer, so, because I won't get a lawyer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can always pursue it, and if it doesn't work out, or they try to get you on, well, you forgot you didn't file this, so it's dismissed, or properly filed this, or do this, or whatever, at least you know that you gave it your best shot.
Well, the thing is, my question is, where I'm finding problems is, who do I put on the lawsuit? There were so many players in the whole thing, and with my daughter being trafficked, and the GAL, 2 different GALs.
I would put it under, name a few, and then go John and Jane Doe.
Yeah, but then do you?
And that way, when they
can
go
you
to
do the
if
county,
you have to
do you
depose
just go
them,
after the county? Can you do, like, the
Yeah,
courthouse?
No, I would go under the county, because I'm not an attorney either, but I would go after I would go for the county, and so it would be like the district attorney. I would go after, I don't know if it was a city, like we have Reno City Police,
Right.
The Reno Police, we have Sparks Police, and we have Washoe County Sheriffs. So whoever was a part of this, whoever facilitated your keeping you under arrest or transporting you, all those people should be named. And then anybody, and then by person, like if it was like the district attorney's office and it was an ADA, you name him. And then just always throw in there something like John and Jane Doe, because during the deposition or during testimony or interrogations, when you're asking these questions and so on and so forth, then they'll come up with a name. And then so that would qualify for the John Doe. You can always redo that and add their names, and call them up and put them on the witness and sue them, because they're a Jane Doe. Because you may not know all the players. That's why you have these does.
Right. So I could put all the players from the criminal case and the family case, like all of them in one suit. That was another, because I didn't know if like the police, like, I should have a separate suit for that. No,
I would just do it all. I would just do it. The only thing about that, okay, when you do that, they're going to hit you, and they're going to hit you hard.
Oh, I know.
They're going to hit you. They're going to hit you hard. So, like, I did it with the AG's office and some of the Supreme Court. I sued the Supreme Court justices, the governor, and the Attorney General himself too. But yeah. I kept them a little separate. I did it because who I was going after was the Board of Prison Commissioners, and the Board of Prison Commissioners consist of the governor, the Attorney General, and the Who else? Oh, Secretary of State. So for a breach of settlement agreement that I had, because they became something happened during a public comment dealing with the wrongful death suit that I had agreed and settled with the state, which was by the Attorney General's office. And so they, during a public comment presentation that I presented some information per the settlement agreement that I had. And so when I went to the Board of Prison Commissioners, the AGs came in and snapped it right up and said, oh, no, you can't do that. We have a confidential settlement agreement. I said, no, we don't. And then they wouldn't allow it. So I had to sue them over it. So I had it to where it was the Board of Prison Commissioners, but it was these three. It was the governor, it was the AG, and so on and so forth. And then I also then they turned around and they breached again. I wound up having to turn around and suing all the Nevada Supreme Court justices on top of it, because they did something wrong that I believed was wrong too.
Right.
But I mean, so you can do stuff like that. You can name them as the Washoe County or whatever your district attorneys. You can do because you remember, it doesn't matter whether your district attorney was personally involved in whatever happened to you. But if it was his ADA, you have to sue him because the buck stops with him. He is responsible for everyone in his staff under him.
Right.
So you have to name you're going to have to name him, and then you can name ADA, whoever who was trying to prosecute you, everything else. And that person you were talking about who was a judge, throw her ass in too.
Oh, she was awful.
Because she had information. She had information. Because of hers, what led to your arrest in these 2 years, right?
Oh,
so
she
started this
against
thing.
me, yeah.
Right. So she started it. So she should be on the top of your list.
Oh, she is on the top of my list. But the other thing is,
so you sue her as an individual.
In their individual capacity.
Because as a judge, she's got, she may have immunity.
Okay, so I should go in after her in her personal capacity, right? Like not as.
Oh, you could, yeah, because they might claim that you might have. I'm not an attorney, but they have. That as the judge, judges have a lot of immunity. But she did it as a judge, right?
Yeah, what she did.
Did she do it as a retaliatory? Okay, well, you can throw it in that way. Oh, okay, hold on a second. So you can throw it in that way, and then you can throw it in John and Jane Doe's and individuals. Add the word individuals into your lawsuit in case they come back and say, oh, well, she has immunity, but does she have immunity as an individual?
Right. Well, then the other thing is, I know we're stronger in numbers, and I know of, I don't know, a half a dozen other women, same storyline, same characters, same, players, same stories, basically, that, like our kids were taken. We haven't seen them in 2 years. They end up in facilities. They come out of these facilities and they don't want nothing to do with us. And we've never got to talk to them again or see them.
Oh.
And
so
I know
you have
women.
You have more than one of you, right? So two or three.
Yeah.
And are they the same players?
Well,
are they the same players?
The women that I know of, we either had the same lawyer or the same GAL or the same judge. There's always a connection with these women. There's a connection between my players and their players. Like at least one player. Like my ex's lawyer is the one girl's ex's lawyer that she's fighting against. So she's, they're doing the same thing to her. But they're all out of the same courthouse. And we had that phone call of the 39 GALs colluding together that came out of our courthouse was made public. And that was released the same day they took my daughter from me. So
do you have your daughter back?
No, I haven't talked to her in over 2 years.
It almost sounds like you might have a class action suit.
She does, I believe.
And I've been working on trying to pull something together, but like, I'm not a lawyer. So, but I've taken this whole 2 years and I've studied my ass off. So, I know quite a bit, but I don't know. It's a lot of work.
Can I make a suggestion just to protect yourself?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm only making a suggestion because, I'm in a civil suit right now, and I've been through other things where I filed suit against people, and they come back and they'll say, you know what? If you lose, we can go after you for attorney and court cost fees and stuff like that. Okay.
No.
So I'm just saying this.
Yeah.
If you have, if you have, do you own any property? Do you own your home?
No,
Okay, all right. So they really can't get anything,
they
can
can't
they?
get nothing. They
I'm
can't
saying,
get a turnip.
right. So, but if you own your own home, I've been threatened with, if you lose. My attorney said to me not too long ago, I won't say who it is, but you won't recognize the attorney, but you would recognize who I'm suing. But I'm not going to say who I'm suing. But I would just say that I got that, and it's just a thing that they do. And my attorney says, well, I'm obligated to say that, if you lose, you could come back and they can get you for attorney fees and so on and so forth. And so, if you don't want to, if you don't settle and we go to trial, but I have to disclose this to you and I have to give you this information, and then, so that way you're aware. And I says, no, we're good. I says, you go back, you tell them this. And I says, no, you tell them I'll see them in trial. And he says, really? He said, yeah. I said, they can't, I said, I'm homesteaded. My house is homesteaded. They won't get a dime. They got nothing. They got nothing. And if they do lose, and if I did lose, which I'm not going to lose, because you can't get any better than they're the defendants. I have everything's in my favor, including their own people.
Right.
Their
own
statements. What I mean? So they're not going to. I'm not going to lose. You see what I mean?
Right.
But it's a scare tactic. But if you own a home, you don't have to have it paid off. You just put a homestead on it. In our state, we're exempt for $500,000 or $600,000 now. So unless I sold the home, my house isn't worth $600,000. Maybe closer to maybe $500,000, but it's not $600,000. Okay.
Right.
But so anything over $600,000 they get. Well, I look at it this way: you're not going to get it, so what the heck? So it's just a threat. And believe me, and I said, if this corporation wanted to do that to me, I will bury their asses.
Well, the thing is,
Right.
I was recording everything from the beginning, like all the trials. I have them case fixing. I have them talking about.
You have a paper trail.
Yep.
A
big one.
You have a paper trail, right? And they probably don't. But you said that judge doesn't have anything, right? But if you could get her in a deposition, so if you had to depose anybody and it goes through and you get the deposition and stuff, that's the first person you should depose is that judge.
Well, yeah.
And everything should fall into place.
My daughter disclosed in open court of molestation, and she put her in a mental ward and me in jail. That was how she handled it.
Did the medical record show that she was molested? I probably shouldn't get into this. Did it show that she has been? Is it documented she's been molested?
Not in the court, not in the hospital records, because the hospital was colluding with the court. So it started off where they were like documenting it, and then they flipped it around, and by the end of the hospital records, tried to make it sound like I had some unhealthy attachment to my daughter.
Well, you know what? That's kind of, I think, almost normal for DAs to say stuff like that.
Yeah. Well,
they kind of turn it around and put it onto you. That it's not true. It's not true. But that's
classic narcissist projection.
Yeah, they're the ones that gave her to the hospital's the one that gave her to a third party that moved her out of state.
Yeah, and so you're unable to see her, stuff like that, right?
I haven't seen her or talked to her since that day in the courtroom when she said, "How are you going to send me with a child molester?" That was like the last time I seen her.
Tell her about the Trinity Teen Solution real quick, Dottie, and then I want to hear from Kathy after that.
So after she said that to the judge, I went to jail. She went to a mental ward. 30 days later, they moved her with the third party to Arizona. And then 30 days from there, they moved her from Arizona to a facility in Wyoming. And when they placed her there, they were aware of it, that the place had a pending lawsuit for child laboring and trafficking when they placed her in that facility.
You're kidding. And so, but you don't know how she's doing at all, do you?
No.
Or are you getting updated? Probably not getting updated.
No, they don't. They wouldn't tell me where she was for 10 months. I mean, even kidnappers have the decency to tell you something.
Right. And not to mention the whole thing, and the whole reason they took her daughter was based off of an unlawful TRO that was not even sent through the courts. It was sent directly from her ex-husband.
To the police officers.
Yeah. And we got the body cam footage of that too.
Oh, okay. You know what? That really pisses me off because you know what? I hear a lot of this kind of stuff when you're going through the divorce process. And you know what? You don't bring your children into it and you don't make these false allegations and stuff like that. So if he's saying that You know what I mean? And
No,
so
if you
just
do
kind of
make
like,
any kind of abuse allegations, you're automatically going to lose your children. So when my
yeah.
daughter was telling me,
And if
I
it's
was
a
like,
cop that's claiming this, he's claiming, it's unfounded, right? He
Completely
should lose his
unfounded.
job.
yeah.
He should lose his job. He should lose his pension. And you know what? He shouldn't have any access to that child either. But then again, I'm just
Well,
kind
when
of
he
bitter on
came,
stuff like that because I've
when the
seen that
police
happen
came
too
to,
many times.
when the police came to take her, there was no CPS involved. They were trying to get in touch with CPS on my front porch. Like the cop was just coming there to take her.
Wasn't it on a Saturday too?
Yeah, it was on a weekend, and the CPS couldn't get in touch with CPS. They weren't with them. Just this officer was there to take my daughter, and it was, some detective petty guy had it all. He talked to Detective Petty, but I can't find a Detective Petty anywhere.
Oh, you know what? Anne, are you there? Anne-Marie, are you there?
I believe she's still with
maybe
us.
not. Okay.
She's still on the line. I don't know if you can hear us.
She should, because she can tell you really good. She's good at getting public records requests and pensions and so on and so forth. So she could tell you how you'd be able to find that guy if he's still working within the county or whatever. So she can tell you, maybe she can text in or are you there, Ann? So maybe she can chime in and see and let you know that there are ways for you to find out all these people, where they work, where they live, so on and so forth.
Well, I know the police officer, he had his captain or whoever was in charge come out to my house because I wasn't giving my daughter up. I was, yelling at him, telling him you're not taking my kid. So he had his superior come out, and she asked him on the body cam footage if he knew who Detective Petty was. And he said, no, I just thought he was a detective for the court. So I know he doesn't work for the county I'm in. I know he doesn't work for St. Louis County Police because they didn't know who he was. So,
but he could work for social service. He could also work for the state
or the courts, or he could be a private detective.
So that I would look into the counties, the county employees and state employees. And Anne-Marie can tell you the way to do that too.
Okay.
And it'll come up and it'll tell you how much they make, and because these are all public records.
Yeah, I've been.
So I would go that way to find out where he's at.
Yeah, I can't find him.
And if that's the case, anywhere at all, maybe he's retired. And if he's retired, he probably gets a pension. Private. So then you can find it that way.
Yeah.
But she can tell you about that because I have her. Yeah. Well, I'm sorry you're going through that. So I'm sorry you wanted. I'm going to just kind of bow out now, if you don't mind, and then I want to hear what the others have to say. You have your other guests.
Kathy, the floor is all yours.
I'm here. I've been listening all along. These stories. Hi. Thanks for being here. Oh, your stories are so devastating. Is everybody here in Nevada?
No, I'm in Missouri.
I'm in Nevada. Okay. I think Anne-Marie and Tom. I don't know. I'm not going to speak for them, but I think a couple of us are.
Okay. So while I'm listening to these stories, I'm wondering, Tanya, you're talking about changing the laws, and I don't know what laws you're changing, but the law is in America that we don't hurt people, or there's an atonement that takes place. And what has happened is when 9/11 happened, the fifth article of the Constitution was evoked by the international, what do you call them? International UN. It was done by the UN, and our public servants, Congress allowed it so that they evoked the fifth article to amend the Constitution so that this international 911 problem allowed them to enter their goons, so to speak. The police officers that are beating people up, the agents that are taking the children, the GALs, those guys are all a force of evil that is here in America trying to take over the Constitution through policy. Legislating policy. So the legislation is meant to be for business practices alone, for settling disputes between corporations, businesses, for profit. It's not meant, legislation is never supposed to be used against the people. That's why we have Title 18, 241, and 242. When these agents come 2 by 2 in a uniform, that's a disguise because they're not doing constitutional good behavior. And constitutional good behavior is required for all public servants. There is no law that allows somebody to hurt somebody else. That's a fiction that we've been grown into because led to trust authority to be doing the right thing. They're not at one level of government. None of them are doing the right things. And until we wrap our head around that these legal, the lawsuits, those are legal actions. You're moving the court against another person. And those corporations from the county level, from the city, the township, the county level, the state level, and the fed levels, they are all profiting from this. Every professional in America is profiting off of the people. They couldn't take any more taxes, and they couldn't make us any more sick for the doctors, but they sure can take our seniors and their inheritances, use them for themselves, and they sure can take our children to sell them as long as we don't connect in unity as one voice. Suing them is obsolete. There's nobody going to get any remedy going up through to the United States Supreme Court. You may get a couple of judges recused, or you might get your case dismissed if you make enough noise up there with enough people watching. But when we don't take the advantage of what God gives us, and that's witnessing for each other, that's the only thing that's missing in this whole process, is witnessing for each other, arm in arm, hand in hand, with our hearts attached to our children and our parents coming home. There's assemblies forming in 38 states. And those assemblies of people are forming committees of safety at the county level so that you don't have to go against the state professionals who are supposed to be our public servants, but now they're professionals, the elite of society, because they're taking everybody. They're taking all of the vulnerable people, and all of us healthy, strong, now angry people have all of our time spent either working to try to earn the living to file the paperwork or hire an attorney or find some remedy. But anybody who has problems with child protective services, we need to have one voice where in your county, they've taken your children and you've got a few other people. That money that's going to child protective services needs to be stopped going to the agents. I listen to their training. They say all parents are guilty of something. You go make an allegation. There's 20-year-olds in the audience we give the judges in the front of the room with the director of CPS, and they have a whiteboard in front of them, and the judge is speaking. All parents are guilty of something. We give you a laptop, and we'll give you a ride by the police if necessary, but you canvass the neighborhood and find out which parents they are. Make your allegation, and it's going to be anonymous. So when you bring it to us, we will pick the children up until the parents can be investigated. We're going to investigate their home and their jobs and their drug use and put them through therapy. And the transportation, the food industry, the judges, the attorneys, the GALs, the agents for CPS, they're all in on this for profit, and they value their job. This is not like a hokey pokey, we got a bad guy in the office today. No, this is a systematic nationwide, not just nationwide. Our lack of knowledge allowed them to go and tell other countries, you guys have to be a democracy because that's what works in America and we're in charge. So in Africa, I've got friends there. They've taken cell phones to the children out in the bush in their village and said, look here, children, we have Wi-Fi. Okay, we'll put you a tower so you can have your own resources, but you're going to have to give us your natural resources in payment. And then they get the children hooked on the TikTok or whatever it is. And now the leaders of those other villages and countries are coming together and saying, I don't think we want the UN to do this. We don't know how democracy works in your country, but it's not working here because they're still stealing our children. How do we stop this? So it's our lack of knowledge and our complacency to speak to each other to the solution. And if oh my gosh, there's so many stories. I just can't begin to consume all of that sadness, and the children I mean, the seniors, they've lived their lives, and I hate that they're taking the parents, but the children, this is not going to be forgiven. And the agencies that are doing this, through policies and bylaws, they're just earning a living, doing what they're told to do without a conscience of their own to know they're next. They
Oh
just don't
yeah,
know that. Yeah.
absolutely. They are next, and they have no clue. They think that oh, it'll never happen to me. But guess what, folks? When you have a government that turns on its own people, they are coming after everybody
You
eventually.
know it. You know they are. So in Nevada, the WashU Patriots searched it back far enough, followed the money, and found out George Soros actually has his hand in the public servants' till. He's actually paying for the policies to be enforced. And there's a guy, Mr. Brown, in the commissioner's office. He came there about 4 years ago when I started watching the commission meetings on YouTube. And believe it or not, this crowded jail is not the worst part that's coming very soon if we don't stop it. In your town, I don't know how many other towns, I'm assuming it's kind of like this everywhere quietly. But Mr. Brown, he's a big, brawn, black guy. He came from California EcoHealth. And their objective is to put the digital ID in your hand, in your phone. It's already in your phone. They can tell your temperature and how many steps you took today.
Are we talking about the same EcoHealth I'm thinking of, the EcoHealth Alliance, or are we talking about another one?
EcoHealth in California. He's a Mr.
Okay, I think I
Global.
know. I've heard of that one too, though. I have heard of that one too. It's another. It's not the same organization, but it is. Yeah, I know. I have heard of that.
So that he was one of their main CEO types over there. I don't know how deep he went into it, but I do know that this digital ID is his objective in their commissioners meeting, because as soon as he came into that position and they introduced him, they began talking about the $45 million that they didn't budget last year, but this year they're offered this was 3 years ago. But this year they're offered $20 million. But if they don't put the budget solid so that it's accepted, the 45 and the 20 million are going to be taken away. So Mr. Brown comes along and says, well, we'll just build a care facility. And as the conversation goes on, it's predominantly for men who need behavioral therapy. If they don't like what our policies are, well, they need to have a reconstruction of their mind. And that's going to be shock treatment.
That's
Going to be
scary.
electric shock treatment. I know. And now they've got all of this glorious stuff going on with a 4-H club, thanking you so much for how much money and contribution you've given to our 4-H children. And we got art projects, and they fill their time in that first couple hours in their meetings, graduating or ingratiating each other with the money that they're spreading around. And a military guy, he came up there and he said, you know what, you guys are saying this amount of money was going to a nonprofit to help the community. And you know where that money went? Into that guy's pocket. And he's not a nonprofit and he's not using it. He's saying it right there in the commissioner's meeting. So his 3 minutes are over. He walks away and they say, thank you for sharing. And now we're going to vote and put you in the care facility. They didn't put him in there. No, I was being facetious. But that's what their objective is. You don't want to object to what they're thinking, because there's going to be some punishment. And it's not to go to jail. It's to go, well, you can't really be in the community if you're bad mouthing us. So you're going to have behavioral therapy, and you can
I say something?
stalk out of you. Please do.
A mother in the courthouse that I'm in, I've, just been kind of helping her. They committed her into the psych ward and took her kids. That's how they got her kids. But they were already trying to do the shock treatment to her.
Yep.
They were trying to get her to sign off for it. She wouldn't sign off for it. And they told her if she come back again, they were going to do that to her, and that they wouldn't be held responsible if she died. And it was all in this paperwork they wanted her to sign. And yeah, so then they've been coming back for her.
Is that WashU? WashU County?
No, I'm
Care
in St.
facility?
Louis County.
She's in St. Louis County, Missouri.
Same thing then. Yep.
They've been back to her house multiple times in the last month to take her again.
Oh my God. There's 2 girls in Ohio. Both of them, Lotus, her adopted child was trafficked, and she saw a whole line of children coming out of a warehouse into a bus out into the alley. and she reported it, and they put her straight away in the nut house. And well, they took her by force. They shot up her house on camera, and she's in her house on her camera. So they shot through her hand, and I don't know if she shot back. I don't know exactly how all that went, but they got her in the nut house for, I don't know, for 4 or 5 years now. And the other one is Janine. They took her I had the video. They came in the house with the director of the CPS in her county. She came knocking on the door, and then the police stepped in front and said, we're here to see your children. And Janine said, what is this about? She said, well, you are not homeschooling properly, the director said. And she said, I am. Call them and see that I gave them the proper paperwork. Homework is good. My children have to travel an hour and a half to school if they're on the bus. And it wasn't good for them. So yes, I am registered for homeschooling. Okay, we call them on the phone, and the woman on the phone says, you gave us a disconnect notice to show what a Wi-Fi disconnect notice to show what your address was, and that wasn't acceptable. That was 8 months ago, and just now they're coming to her to say, nope, we're taking your kids right now. And because she was questioning one more time when she hung up the phone to the agent, the police officer tackled her over top, knocked her table over, knocked her head into the counter, and arrested her. She was in the nut house. I think she's out. I think she's on Facebook now. I think she's out, but she doesn't have her children. I think they're 12 and 13. And her daughter's been put in there with druggies and witches, doing spells and casting things and being abused. And she doesn't know if her son's okay. Her son is with her some family member, but she's not allowed to see him. This whole thing is dreadful that we're allowing it to happen when we do have the power. We have to know that our power is with our Bill of Rights. The first 10 amendments of the Bill of Rights. The First Amendment is first because we speak in public to the problems, we come to the solutions, and then we take action together. When we take action together, our agreements are as strong. Those of us who serve the sovereign, we're not sovereign citizens, but when we serve God and we don't hurt people and our intentions are right, God provides a way for us to know what to do next about it. And leaving these people in office, the corporate actors, is not logical. Leaving any of them is not logical. To sue them and have them recused or to have them dismiss your case, this is all garbage. Suing is just ridiculous. We
need to have criminal accountability to these bastards. Is what we need.
Absolutely. And we've done what we've done for Roger and Stewart is taken it upon ourselves to go through his docket, find out the evidence as a group of us, and we filed a people's grand jury presentment, true bill, to show Breslow and Steggy. First, we delivered it to them privately. The Washoe Patriots did. First, delivered it to them, and they didn't answer it. That was on the 27th of June. On the 11th of June, we took it to the commissioner's office where the Washoe Patriots stood up at the end of the meeting, and he gave his 3 minutes, which was reading the presentment to them, saying, release Roger immediately because there was no restraining order, and he's legitimate of the trust over his mother's care. And because there's no restraining order, they've got no anything on him. It was a young assistant district attorney who jumped the gun. The sister at the care facility got the videos where the sister saying, he's dangerous. He's threatened me with guns. He's crazy. He's going to hurt my mother. You got to go right now. The officer on the cop cam says, ma'am, let me do my job. I'm taking a report to the manager. She says, there's a restraining order against him. So to the manager, the cop says, is there a restraining order? And the manager's frantically looking for the files. And he says, well, I'm sure there's one, but we just can't find it right now. So with that, the cop took it to the assistant, climbing the ladder, Assistant Jenkins. She jumped the gun. Instead of investigating that, she went ahead and called for the silver alert and called all of this FBI helicopters and SWAT teams in the middle of the night to come and take this dangerous, that media reported a 4-hour dangerous standoff.
Oh,
but
wow.
Roger was sleeping right under the window.
That's so messed up.
It is so messed up. So what we did was presented it first to Breslow and Steggy privately, so they had the opportunity to correct their mistake like any civilized people do, go to take it to the person who caused the problem. And then they didn't respond, so we took it to their boss, who the county commissioners are responsible for the budget. And in America, they have to train and supervise good constitutional behavior and only pay good behavior. But they don't, until we take it to the commissioners, they don't know who's the good guy and the bad guy. Well, they do, because they're protecting each other now that we know they're as much criminal, because one of them don't even have their bond or oath on record.
Interesting.
So now the WashU Patriots took it one step farther. Instead of just the people's grand jury as a body of people, he found the lockbox for the foreman at the actual grand jury for Washoe County. So that presentment that he's sending against the commissioners for having no bond and for issuing money, appropriating money, voting on the money issues where she doesn't have a bond, she's not allowed to be there voting. So he's taken that to the county commissioners and saying that Mr. Brown's allowing it because he's the manager. He knows she doesn't have a bond, and she's like his little pet, his shill. Like, until somebody announces it, everybody goes on happy earning their money. But as soon as it's put into the public knowledge, and now there's a presentment against them, a true bill of probable cause does exist for corruption against Mr. Brown and the body of commissioners. When they hear that on the 11th, they should come down with an indictment if their grand jury is not fixed, like I suspect they usually are. But that's the opportunity. He's covering all the bases by finding that lockbox that the foreman will open it, and then he'll present the information to the grand jury. And I'm thinking Nicholas gets to be there to explain himself too, but I'm not sure if I'm pretty sure he has to be able to be there. The prosecutor usually is the one who addresses the grand jury when it's against the people. But he's not going to take people to the grand jury if it's against one of the public servants. He's protecting them. So for Child Protective Services, if we have a few people in the same county with the same perpetrators like you're talking about, and we write this up as a true bill, it's a presentment, and we know enough that it's all a corporate policy profitability gimmick, that they intimidate, antagonize, they threaten, they sneak, and they do whatever it takes to stay in that agreement. Because if they don't, they'll get blackballed. There's no attorney that can go in there and say, hey, guys, you're going to knock it off, because they will just either eliminate her, or blackball them from the county courthouse.
Exactly.
And there's just no way to do it. It's just ridiculous. That's why we have
people need to start representing themselves now.
Well, representing yourself is saying, I am representing myself.
What I meant is to be pro se. I apologize. I said that incorrectly.
Well,
or not even pro se. How should I say it then?
People. As a woman or man.
People. We're just people.
As an individual.
For each other.
Just a woman or man there to handle your business.
Yeah, well, we don't want to go by ourselves.
But my point is, folks, we need to start becoming our own experts in law.
Yes, the law different than the legal. Because the law. Go ahead.
They're not doing law. They're corporate, like they're administrative.
They're acting under color of law, which is by definition illegal law.
Yes, it's RICO. It's racketeering. Yes. They're using policies against people who are safe by the Constitution. If we don't back it down, we're going to be a global unit. And they're not going to give us the benefit of America's justice. They're going to have us treated like all of the other countries. You do what we say or you die.
That's what they're aiming for.
Well, I have a list of 25 other families here in St. Louis, all the same story, same courthouse, same stuff. And nobody's done anything.
We all have, you get there, you set the time and you be in charge, and you say when we're going to have the Zoom call, and we're going to explain the difference between legal and lawful to those victims so that they become victors. Because this requires consequences for the perpetrators that are supposed to be our public servants.
Consequences for their conduct.
And compensation for the victims, and your children return, for crying out loud. The first thing we can negotiate the money. Why you got arrested? Why?
Because I said there'd be consequences for your conduct to the judge for trafficking my kid, and they came after me for that.
Well, let's just bring some, he can see what it's like to be under the gun, because he doesn't belong in that position. None of them,
It was a
none of
woman,
them.
actually. She's
She
really
then,
evil.
yeah, this is evil. This is a spiritual war we're in, coming down from the UN, who are all those Satan worshiping, blood drinking, stealing children and adults. This is not to be tolerated in God's good world. We're here to co-create heaven on earth and to make sure
Right.
it's safe for our children to come into the next world, into the next generation. And right now it really isn't. And
No, it isn't.
no mandates are allowed to be on people. When we know the Constitution, there's 7 articles. Each one of those articles have a duty or an omission that those people do not cross that line. And because they've come across the border they cross the line into corporate policy. And they're all doing it because that's how they get their retirement. Oh my goodness. In 2019, there's a budget, and that's the taxpayers' dollars coming for the roads and the schools and what have you to take care of business. But then there's the economy. CAFR, a comprehensive annual financial report, goes from the county. Each business of the county puts their collective accounting to the county as an economy. All of the people that pay taxes goes into the budget, CAFR, comprehensive annual financial report. At the end of the year, there's a budget for the people's money, and then there's a economy for the corporate taxes that are being paid at the county level. Then it goes to the state, and then it goes to the Fed, and then they divvy it back down and give it to Ukraine. Okay, this makes sense to nobody that I know of.
Right, including me. It doesn't make any sense. It's all ass backwards, if you ask me.
Yes, because we haven't been constitutional people. We've been looking at lawsuits and how do we jump through their hoops and get through their tests and do their rules and make sure you filed the right thing and talk legalese to the corruption. And that's not acceptable. It's for the common people are served by the public servants in those positions. But now they've gotten so out of touch with the common people.
And brazen, too.
They've got us believing that they're protecting us from the other people. And I don't know any criminals that would hurt me. I know some druggies a little bit. I know some people that might pick up something that doesn't belong to them, but nobody's going to come and hurt me like the government's hurting us.
Right. Because they really are. They're destroying lives. They're ruining lives. They're the mental health and emotional damage that they're doing to these kids is unconscionable. And we cannot let it stand, folks. We have to say enough, no more. And I give my word and I declare, and I want to make this publicly known. We're coming for all pedophiles, for all freaking human traffickers, and sex traffickers, child traffickers, and anybody and everybody in between involved in this corruption. We're coming for you. We're coming for you.
First, for the
We're
ones
not
who are
backing
allowing
down.
it. First,
Right.
for the ones who are allowing it in their authority position, because they don't have any authority. It's fraud. Fraud from the very beginning of the system when they say, well, everybody should have a marriage license. If you get married in the church, you have to have a state blood test for your own well-being. Okay, now we agree to that. So now we got a marriage license, and it says all issues of this marriage will be wards of the state. Issues are children. So then the children comes up and we get a birth certificate for the child because that's just what we do. The mother's in a state of euphoria. They sign the paper. Now you've told your state that this child belongs to you because I had a marriage license and here's your birth certificate to prove it. And other things go on with the bonds and CUSIP numbers and such, but I don't get too much concerned with the money because I know the money issue is for us to follow to find out where it is that that judge owns what. And then we freeze that fraud because the executive order that Trump put in office, that Trump signed when he was in office, one of the first things he did, might have been the very first thing, is Executive Order 13181. It is all public servants found corrupt are to have their properties, assets, and accounts frozen. A little down farther, it says sooner rather than later because they tend to hide what they've stolen. So that made me start thinking, found corrupt. How do you? We know they're corrupt because they're hurting people. How do we find them corrupt and cause these consequences? So it's logical. What they do to us, we do to them. We have to give them the opportunity to correct their mistakes. Once you told them all of this, whole train wreck is one car after the other. There's a GAL, there's an attorney, there's an agent, there's a judge, there's a district attorney. There's all of these little train cars are coming to a train wreck. And the next person that sees it, that doesn't correct it, is at the head of the train getting smashed by it. Until we know what that light is at the end of the tunnel, it's our accountability to each other to witness and declare we don't want to be treated like that. We're governed by consent. And anything that they've done with the marriage license, the birth certificate, the Social Security, driver's license, taxes, all of these things that we've done to comply, it was all based on fraud. And they'd have no honor left. We know who they are, and they're not worshiping our God. And they're not doing our God's service. But when we do serve our sovereign, we don't allow sovereign citizen bullshit to happen anymore, because you're guilty, and you're guilty. And now we're going to freeze your accounts. After we give you the opportunity to come forward and fix it, we know they ignore us. That second notice is a default notice that says you've admitted everything, because that's their legal terms. If failure to respond timely is fatal. So if they don't deny what you're saying, they're admitting everything at that time limit. Once that time limit's over and you give them the default notice, what we did with Roger and Stewart intended to go to the commissioners and have somebody there be honorable, and they're not in Washoe. They are just fully dedicated to becoming one of the stronger global ID. What do they call that there? So you can have your bank account attached to your body's temperature. And if you ate too much meat this week, they'll shut your account down until it rolls over. It's tying into the central bank digital currency that they're trying to push, I believe. Exactly.
What they're wanting.
CBDCs, CBDCs, so that your telephone, it already tells you, it can already tell you, and if they want to open it up, they can know how many footsteps you took today. They can tell what your temperature, what your body temperature is, and they want to know more than that about you. But if that rolls into our counties without us objecting to it, and UN had 18 months to do it. And those time limits are about up. It's a September 20th. I'm pretty sure there's enough people out there objecting to it strong enough that they're going to have to regroup and find out what the objections are and correct it in a couple of months. They'll come back and vote again. But September 20th is how fast they wanted it to come if we weren't objecting to it fast and strong enough. That's how they're doing it. And the commissioners, go ahead.
I was going to say that executive order that you were referring to, that Trump signed, it's Executive Order 13818 for our viewers in case they want to look it up. I recommend everybody does, because it's a good avenue I think we can pursue to put an end to this corruption. It's a valid option. I think that hasn't been really pursued yet until relatively recently.
Thank you. And Stephen, you read or had the automated read it back in the last time I was on your call for what did Justice Scalia's majority opinion for the United States versus Williams case. Justice Scalia put a beautiful document. His majority opinion says that the people are the grand jury. When we see that there's a problem and we come together, we are, first of all, in secret. There's no other authority who has the power that the grand jury has. We have the ability to investigate every and all book of public resources in the prosecutor, in the CPS, every office. We have the ability to go in there and tell them we want the books opened up so we can see where is our public money being used and find out where it's being used against us. Oh, gee, I didn't know that. We better investigate a little further. Prosecutor, how much money do you make? Well, the prosecutor in my county, when I was reading it back in the day, it says the prosecutor has the ability to hire as many confidential informants as he sees fit and to pay them not more than his salary per year, each one of them. And okay, so back to CPS in this training, this 20-20-year-olds that are going to make allegations because all parents are guilty. This judge is saying, and up on this board, I have what looks like your form that you fill out. And there's 3 check marks. You check that first box because that belongs to me. The second box goes to the prosecutor for his use. And you don't talk about those 2 boxes. The third check you put on that paper goes to the agency itself to run. But the judge is getting $6,000 to $10,000 a bonus for each child. And it's being paid from Social Security money that's left over from people who didn't use up all their before they died.
That's the title. Isn't that the Title 4E funding?
Title 4D, yeah. D, is it D or is it E?
It's E, I believe. I believe it's Title 4E.
Okay. So it's the leftover Social Security money. They just didn't have any other thing to do with it. So now they're giving judges bonuses, and they're calling it rehoming. Not just protecting the children, rehoming the children. When Obama was in office, he made a rule that public is allowed to be lied to. You guys do whatever it takes to control the population because they can be dangerous if they get out of line. So that propaganda bill that he allows the media and the agencies to lie to the people.
He opened the door for Project Mockingbird to resume, basically.
Basically, he did. And it's intentional, and it's not by chance. This is a design. So what was the, when they, I'm trying to keep my order here so I don't confuse you guys with what I'm trying to say.
Oh, no, you're good.
Give me a second.
Take your time. You
Okay,
want to chime in, Angie, for a bit?
Well, she's pretty much saying everything that I've been saying for the longest now. That
We want to get a little closer to your mic. You're a little low.
Sorry. They have tricked us into thinking that we're going into a court of law and that, you know, we have constitutional rights, and it's not like that at all. They have completely tricked us into basically giving up all our rights, our children. And I mean, they're coming for everything if we don't stop them.
I would like you to know that nobody can take your right away from you. What our right is together is to witness, like the scriptures say, witness to the truth. When it reveals itself, it corrects. So when you have 25 people in your same county, you guys are a grand jury. You're better than a grand jury because you've been in those trenches and you know what needs changed. It's not like we need to write new laws and put new bills there. Connie Reguli, oh my goodness, don't let me start on her. I will in a minute, though. I've
heard some horror stories.
Yeah.
Live on Washington, D.C., live on Facebook, is it 4 years ago, end of August, she says, I wrote the Family First Act, and I didn't know it would cause you parents a hardship, so I'm here to rewrite it. And look how much fun I'm having with my cocktail in my hand. We do bed and breakfast, and there's lots of restaurants. And it's your parents' fault because you're not here writing bills like I am. The hallways are empty, and these guys are up here every day, every morning from 8 till 10, waiting to take your information, but nobody's here. So look what I'm doing. I'm rewriting it. How much fun I'm having doing it. And she didn't say what she's rewriting, but on my birthday, September 10th, I opened up Facebook and I see $600 billion with a B is now awarded to Family First. And now it's called Adoption and Safe Families Act.
Yeah.
Awarded to this to help parents pay attorneys when they take your child.
I have a picture of her with Clinton, so I know what she's about.
Yep. And some of the girls who have talked to her think that she's the best advocate in the world. But while I was putting her on Front Street on Facebook before I got deleted probably for that, saying that the grand jury is way out of this. We don't witness for each other. We got nothing to talk about.
Right.
So she is on rallies saying, I'll help you. And the young girls coming to privately on Messenger to me saying, you're right, she did. She took $6,000 or $10,000, and like 8 to 10 of them came forward real fast and said $6,000 to $10,000 is what she took as a retainer to help them get their children. Now she won't answer their phone.
Oh, wow.
He's just there to keep them on the wrong path from doing anything and making change. There's a lawyer here in Missouri like that too, that everybody like jumped on her like coattails, and she was just in place to keep us from doing anything.
Yeah.
And it's hard to make people see
that.
You can't make them see it. They have to figure it out on their own. And that takes time.
We're building a huge database.
That's what she said.
Yep. And the thing with those the change your status type thing, so you step out of the system from your straw man, so you can tap into your treasury. That as far as I can see, we don't remove ourselves from fraud. We remove the perpetrators.
Exactly.
And It just
Right.
doesn't make sense. Put myself on a list to be a national,
No,
and
I
then
don't
I can
like
be
that idea.
targeted. No, hell no.
No,
Heck
I
no.
don't think
I'm
it's,
sorry.
Yeah, that's what we suspected that they were building that database for, isn't it, Dottie?
yeah, yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Oh my
But
goodness. I would love to have your county have the results that are needed. There's
I would
not too
like to
many
see it
other.
too. Like I said, I've been studying. I've been trying to figure out like how to do all this. I have 100 million ideas and things written down and papers drawn up, and but it's just I don't know. There's just something that's a roadblock. It seems like there's still just some roadblock there that I can't put my finger on yet.
Was thinking about suing them. There's the brothers up there, This is a family thing for them. If one of them deviates and you point it out, name that person in that office, and then you have enough witnesses that are standing behind you saying, well, she's not the problem and you're the problem, and we're eliminating you because we're going to freeze your accounts, and you're not going to be able to move around like they do to us.
Yeah.
So
they all got to go.
they do. They do. If they're not going to repent and do it right and let us keep checking on them and make sure that there's nobody else that they're harming until they're constitutional people, we have to be the constitutional people.
Yep. We have to be the vanguard, and then they got to go, because we're not going to stand for this, folks. We're not standing for it at all.
We are not the business of the government, and they have all of these policies in place from it's global guidance is what they're doing now. Everything's global, and they want regions instead of states. If you read their mission statement, the World Economic Forum working with the UN, they have all of our conveniences in this circular map. I don't know if you've seen it or not, but you need to look at it.
I think I have seen it.
It had the word COVID in the middle, a little square, and at each corner of that square, it goes out into quadrants to an outside circle. And if you tap on any 4 of those dots, you go out to a map that shows this quadrant is the agriculture, the education, the transportation, and the new policies for global climate change. And then you tap this other corner, and it's got all of the other telephones, electric, water, all of these other things. And they want to control everything, and they have it wrapped up. I mean, there's a genius plan that they've got. They have 3,000 heads of corporations who came together and agreed to their mission statement, which is we are now stakeholders.
I would argue that it's not so smart plan, because look at how many of us are awake now. Just in them not even hiding it. I think it backfired in a lot of ways.
Back engineering is what we're doing with that, because all of those departments, they've got their train wrecks so that the poison's going into the water, and they've got the fires, and they've got so many. They got this DARPA that's doing the weather and causing hurricanes or causing HARP. They've got all of these things sewn up because we've been enjoying football.
Did you hear about that Pfizer manufacturing facility recently that got destroyed? Yeah, that was odd. If you look at the wide footage of that, all the buildings around it are not damaged at all. It makes you wonder, doesn't it?
Yep. And I don't know about Trump, if he's if the stories that I know what he says, and it's in my heart, the way he talks, that we are the people and we have the need to have work for the people. When he talks, it warms my heart. But then we've got all of these other players that he can't take everybody out. He just can't. He cannot come to your county and find out which one of those agents are the wrong one, doing the wrong work. But we do that. That's why he gave us that executive order. So when you say those names okay, one more second. The one more piece of this puzzle is, how did it get so bad is because when you don't hurt somebody, you're not having a crime or a claim against you. Until you hurt somebody, you're free to expand and experiment in every direction as long as you don't hurt somebody. But they have us convinced, have too many of people convinced, that we have to protect you from crime because there's drug dealers out there and there's gun owners out there. And they put all this fear into us so that we're looking the other way while they're doing their dirty work.
Yep.
So
it all comes down to the fear, folks.
Yes.
We have a choice. Here's what we need to all start asking ourselves, and this is a very valid question. Are we going to be of service to self or of service to others? Are we going to
Yeah.
let fear consume us and cripple us from fighting back and calling out this corruption, or are we going to use it to empower ourselves and make us mad so that we can fight back?
Yes. Anger is a higher energy frequency than apathy or fear.
Absolutely.
When we come up to anger and we start looking at each other like, what the fuck? And then we say, well, they did it to me too. Well, let's come together and write it down.
Yep.
You can't get anything done if you're not able to write it down like a timeline. Like you were asking, Angie, was it you asking, who do I challenge here? But not in a lawsuit. This is in your own private capacity. You bring your friends together and you say, this is how much damage they've done to me, and I still don't have my child. Oh, me too. Oh, you too. Oh, who else? Oh, wow. And there's only a handful in each county who are doing it, is the really ridiculous part.
Oh, yeah. It's a lot of the same players, actually.
As
A lot
long
of
as
these
we're
cases.
there, as long as we're there one at a time talking to them, they've got the upper hand. But when we come together as a unit and they don't even know who we are, because the grand jury writes in secret, they investigate in secret. We come together privately in our Zoom calls or face to face when possible, but we're not bound by those county borders like they're sitting
Exactly.
in their office. We're a nation of people, one voice from these people, and those public servants have to jump back in line for fear of losing their retirement. Oh, that's the one part, the retirement. And I was telling you about the CAFRs. There's economy and there's a budget. And 2019, it's on the internet. You can find it. It's CAFR 1 is the name, and Walter Burien is the one that put it out. But the college university, two kids came and interviewed the guy who's in charge of the CAFRs, both the economy and the budget. They say, we want to talk to you about the CAFR. He says, oh, I've got the budget right here. It's all in line. You can see the graphs and the numbers line up and everything's in order. You can read it if you want. Not a lot of people do, but we got it in order in case you want to. They say, oh, no, sir, we want to talk about the economy. And he says, the economy? No layman can understand that. Are you crazy? And he turns around and he looks for somebody else to go talk to. He walks straight away from him because the economy in 2019, $14 trillion was given to the federal government, and there was no designated place because they had the budget tapped in, right? They got the budget all lines up. They got what they need from the people. When this 14 trillion comes in, our Congress says, well, where are we going to put all this money? We'll just store it in our retirements for now. And we'll pass down to the street sweeper a good enough retirement plan so they value their job. And now when we have to have a mandate or a shutdown or accuse somebody, the street sweepers will know all of the community. And they work for us. So now we got our own little rat walking around, not just a street sweeper, but you got my point, right?
Yeah, you were using a metaphor for that position, but absolutely, yeah, it makes perfect sense. That's how they were able to achieve what they did in the last 3 years or so. I believe it
Exactly.
makes perfect sense.
Yeah, if you can get a third of the government working, if you can get a third of the people working for the government, and then you got a third of the people who are just trying to do a life, and then you got another third who are willing to rat out the working third, it's a catastrophe. And that's what they've got going on. I have my best friend who took 4 shots. And I'm not allowed around his grandchildren unless I get shots. I'm saying you can keep
That's
the grandchildren.
ridiculous.
I know, right? And he's one of my best friends. And he can't see it. He doesn't understand it. He doesn't have God. I know God provided my body and my path so that I could know what I'm talking about today. All of my pain and suffering, that was a loss for me. It was hard to go through. But what I learned from it was valuable for today. I didn't know this was coming. Who could have seen it? But at least I had God's training. Put on the armor of God, and we got nothing to worry about.
Absolutely,
Can't walk in
absolutely.
fear.
So we got about a minute or so left before we're in 2 hours in. Anybody want to throw in some last words and before we wrap it up and put their 2 cents in before we close it out?
I'd like us to have a Zoom call for this to put the paperwork together. It's not that complicated. Just got to name the names and have adversaries and allies.
Yeah, let's set that up, Angie, and make see if we can't get that done.
I would love to.
Wonderful.
Definitely.
Stephen, you have my number. I don't know if Angie does. I think Tanya.
I do.
And Eric, yeah.
I'll
Can we do this
message it to
again?
her in case she doesn't.
Yeah, let's do this again, guys.
Definitely. Definitely.
Heck
Definitely.
yeah. Okay. God bless
Tanya,
you guys.
any last words? Yeah, of course. Anytime.
No, thank you for having me on your show, and everybody have a good night.
Tanya, wait, could we have one more second?
Yeah.
Tanya, this question is about going into the legislature. Having their ear is very valuable. I know that it's taken a lot of walking to get there. What law would you change to instead of backing off the laws and saying we want this accountability, buddy? You hurt me and you hurt them. What law would you change to prevent them from doing children or seniors?
Sometimes you have to bring the story, and that's how it starts. You bring your story to them.
Oh, and then they look at it to see what to do.
And they start to listen, and you keep coming back, and that's what happened with me. They started to listen and say, oh my God, maybe this guy's innocent. So the thing is that's what I would do. I would start bringing your case here and then showing them. And then to make it sink in, you always do this. You always say, it could happen to you. And what would you do if it happened to you? You have to let them know it could happen to you. What would you do? And you need to make the changes so it doesn't happen to you and others and your loved ones.
So you think that they're not aware that Senator Mary Schaefer put them on Front Street with CPS? Do you think that Congress is not aware of Mary Schaefer and the other attorney that got killed?
I find that I get, I don't know about your legislators in your state, but I know that I've been doing this for a number of years. I started back in like 95 and then but I've noticed that we have made changes. We made changes in better to help those with mental health illness. We really, again, I don't do the guardianship type thing, but based on other things that we have worked on and I have worked on in the past, if you take your story and you say how this has affected me and my family, because of having my loved one taken away and I'm going to be prosecuted, there has to be this. And you know what? Maybe there should be a committee to look into this and have legislation created to have an interim study committee. So people who have had this problem can come to your legislators, and it's like
we are the committee. We are the committee. If we're not it, there isn't one. I'm sorry.
I know, but what I'm saying is if you want to change the laws, you take it to an interim committee or your legislators and you let them do it. And then what they do is they do studies on it, they do research and policy, and they make the changes and they make the accountability and they keep data tracking.
So it's our federal Congress that put these rules in place. And when it comes to the state Congress.
I'm dealing with state. We don't have a state Congress.
You don't have a state Congress?
Assembly. No, we have state assembly members. We have state senators. We have federal. Federal is our federal senators, our federal Congress, but we deal primarily with the state because they are the ones who make the laws here for us to follow. And then what's mandated by federal.
I'm sorry. I have to interrupt that part of that conversation that legislatures make the laws. The legislatures make codes, statutes, and policies. They don't dictate to people for us to follow, is what you said, why I'm interrupting that. We don't follow.
Okay, well, they make the laws. Here,
legislators make the legal tricks that we're doing. The law is you don't hurt people.
For our follow, right? But what I'm saying is that you can go in there. I don't know about your states. I'm only talking about my states, but I assume that you states may have the same thing. We had what you call the Advisory Commission on the Administration of Justice. It came out in 2007. It was an interim committee, and it listened to all kinds of things dealing with the criminal justice system. Okay. They dealt with that. They listened to the laws. They changed the policies on the sentencing, so on and so forth. And they tried to correct the wrongs or things that aren't working anymore. And it went on for many, many years. And we finally pretty much succeeded on everything that they wanted to get accomplished. Okay. I became an advocate through this way. But what I am saying is you can do the same thing in your state and go to your legislators and see if they would do it. And the next legislative says, listen, we want a subcommittee
My main focus
established
is
work.
no, that I'm in Nevada. I'm not living in Nevada, but my interest in Nevada is with Roger and Stewart to have an example of how do we remove Judge Breslow and DA Steggy. DA Steggy is on the disciplinary committee. You can't get there against him. It's a conflict of
Yeah,
interest.
it's like DAs have a lot of clout. I mean, they're like gods around here. But the thing is that when you are dealing with children and you're dealing, because we have our Nevada revised statutes dealing with guardianship and stuff like that, you need to fix the guardianship and say, listen, stuff like this should not happen to the private citizen. So it's like, we're going to fix it to where it doesn't no longer happen to the private citizens. We want to hear more information about that. How can we fix it? So what happened to Roger and Stewart will never happen again. And it takes it out of the control of the district attorney.
Did you watch a movie, I Care a Lot?
I'm sorry.
Oh, I know I did.
Yeah,
It's actually based on a true story of a guardianship. What do they call them again? The ones who are responsible for becoming the guardians when they do a guardianship case like that, and they take
guardian ad litem.
What do they call?
Guardian
Well, the one
litem?
for the adult guardianship programs. Is that what they are there too?
Yeah, guardian ad
Guardian
litem.
litem.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So she's a guardian ad litem out of Vegas, but that's based on a true story. I think it's April Parks, was it?
No.
Or what was the name of
April
the person that the movie was based off of? That's the one I'm trying to think.
I have her face, but I don't have her name at the moment. Oh my gosh, she went from 80 people to 800 people. She had all the pictures up on her wall because she got financed by one cool dude, a midget, that she took her mother. The attorney took the wrong mother, and the midget is a high power gangster type. And when he found out that this attorney was so slick that he could actually take his mother into a home, he went and found his mother, and then he found the chick that did it. And he says, wow, you're kind of smart. Let's get together. I'll sponsor you, and you just take over. And that's pretty much what the care. Go ahead.
As I say, I think her name is Maria Grayson, according to the movie casting information.
Good. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So
that does sound familiar. Maybe I did see it.
So the home that Roger's mother,
Marla
Susan,
Grayson. I apologize. I thought it was an I. Go ahead. Marla Grayson.
The home that Roger's mother, Susan, was locked in, they had 40 facilities. And I've got a friend in New Jersey who says, my brother is a senator, put me into this office, and all I got, I'm a musician by trade, but I go to these senior centers to investigate, how are they doing? Is everything okay? And so my job, I get $2,000 a pop for stopping into the desk and saying, hey there, people, how's everything going here? And they say, we're doing fine. So I put a check mark here and I leave. And that's my $2,000. He's the investigator to make sure that it's working right. And he doesn't have to look at anything except for front desk.
Wow.
This is evil incarnate.
It
and
is.
To allow it to stay makes us evil, supporting it. We've got to come together in agreements and write it down, naming names and pointing to how much money do you have to give us back? And you got to go to jail.
Because this is ridiculous. I mean, these bastards have committed the crimes of all crimes. I mean, they've gone way off the deep end.
And do we think anytime anybody is allowed to do this? I mean, they have policies put in place, and they have agency upon agency of policy and policy. And they have you even saying policies for us to follow. But we are constitutional people. We have God in our hearts. We don't hurt people. We know we don't hurt people. If I see somebody hurting somebody, I'm going to step in and say, hey, let's knock it off. Knock their head off if you have to, because we don't hurt children or anybody innocent. It's not about making more laws. It's about affecting consequences with the ones we've got.
Yep.
Take these guys out of office.
Absolutely. And we can no longer afford to go along to get along. Go ahead, Tanya.
What I'm saying is maybe not making more laws, but correcting the laws that we have on the books to protect those. And you can do that through legislation. I'm just saying that from personal experience and others that I have worked with, I'm not dealing with guardianship, but I'm dealing with other areas of the law. If you want change, then you go in and because it's not working, you go in and you fix the law to make it right.
Do you think that you were talking about when you talked to your legislature or your assembly about mental illness? Do you think that helped them decide to make care facilities to shock the behavioral people, the men? I mean, they predominantly men who need behavioral therapy. Do you think that's where they took the legislature into that 45 and 20, $65 million to build the care facility that on the surface looks like they're doing art and music for children, but in reality, they're shocking the brains of people like Roger?
I don't know anything really about that part of it, but when you're dealing with the homelessness and the mental illness and stuff like that, and dealing with police officers and stuff, they listened. Okay. And they made changes in the law for the better for these people. And it holds the law enforcement accountable in some of the ways that they are doing things. And they're changing policies within their departments and trying to make things better. Okay. So like I said, I don't know a whole lot about the guardianship, but what I can tell you is this: if you want to make the changes and you want to change the law, then do it. But do it this way, get their attention, go back. Start with an interim. Say, we want to do a study, and then they can somebody get one of your legislators to put a bill forward, a BDR, saying, listen, we want to do this. We want to do an interim study on what Roger and victims of elder abuse, nursing homes, type of this, guardianships, and see what the statistics show. And then that way, every nursing home, every assisted living will have to report and do data and find out what the treatment is, what is going on, the protocols. And sometimes it takes a few years, but changes get made.
So
that's what we did with the advisory commission. We've got we've gone in and they've gone in and changed the acts for the parole, the sentencing structures on the felonies. Some people were being charged with a felony, a category A, when it should be maybe a C or a D. Mm-hmm. And so stuff like this happens. So it's the same thing that could happen in a guardianship. I'm personally not affected by the guardianship. I hear Roger's case and Stewart's case, and what they're doing is wrong. And I totally agree with that. Okay. But, and I will tell you that some of the legislators during the legislation heard stuff about Roger and Stewart's case. Okay.
But
they are getting made aware of it, but it's not me who should be speaking on behalf of that. It should be those who are personally affected to get their story there to say, listen, this is what happened to me. We have to change it. I shouldn't have to go to prison because I followed the law. I thought I did the truth. I wanted to prevent somebody from being hurt, or because I didn't want my loved one to die because of the neglect. And I took them out of there, and I'm going to go to prison for the rest of my life, basically. No, this is wrong. It can happen to you. Is this what you want to happen to your mother, your grandparents, or whatever, or your loved one? No. Then you need to fix it and fix it now.
Yep.
Well, we're looking at
and then maybe they need to have, instead of doing the district attorney, why don't you put it through an ombudsman?
I have a suggestion, you guys, that I think
trying to look at these guardianships and see what is happening, and then the treatment that is going on, and let them be the deciding factor, and say, you know what? This is unfounded against these individuals. And you know what? No, it should not move forward with the DA. And this could be documented, things like this. Or maybe perhaps, you know what? It is founded and they should be prosecuted.
So
you see what I mean?
Here's what I think we should encourage everyone to do. You should pursue all available options until you can't pursue them. So, for example, and Tanya's case, she went to the legislator, right? So, but what do you do if the legislator's not cooperating and they're not looking into this and they're purposely not looking into it? Well, the next step is you call it out.
I will tell you.
And you document it and get evidence so that you can prove that they're not doing what their job is.
That's what we've done for Roger.
That's how
you vote him out of office.
Proceeding, I think that's a good, solid.
You write a letter to the editor and you say, you know what? I went there. Do you not care about your loved one? Apparently they don't. So take it to the voters, and put it in a letter to the editor. Take it to the press if you can. But nobody's going to stop you. Get those letters to the editor. Say, listen, this is what's happening. Eventually, we're all going to be in that. We're all going to get older. We're all going to be in this one situation, and our children and our grandchildren are going to be. And that could be very well you. Do you want this happening to your grandma, your grandpa? Because right now you're dealing with people who are. And like I was telling Stewart, I think personally, my opinion is for anybody sitting on a trial, if he goes to trial, he needs to have people who are, I don't know how old you are, Stephen, but I'm in my 60s.
I just turned 40.
Okay, so I wouldn't want you on my jury. Sorry. I would want somebody who's my age.
You would want somebody closer to your age,
Because
one of your
I'm
peers, basically.
right. And so my age, that type, because you know what? They probably have a parent or a grandparent who's heading that way or is that way. And it's like, I don't want to see my grandma abused. I don't want to see my mother abused.
I don't want to see one more child taken.
Right, exactly. So you want to, I'm saying for them personally, I would, if it were me standing trial, I would want somebody who is my jury to be someone of my age, because you know what? They're right behind Roger's mom. They're the next step. They're heading that way. And if they don't fix it and they don't send a message and say, no, this ain't going to happen, you know what I mean? Their grandchildren won't care, because the grandchildren are going to be looking at it like this. It's like, oh, well, they're all getting older. You know what I mean? It's going to happen, but they're not there yet. But when they hit to our age, they're going to say, "Oh my God, why
have more of an impact?"
And when Grandma was there, you see what I mean? So I'm thinking somewhere a jury's going to have to say enough is enough. I would do the same damn thing. I talked to a friend of mine, another advocate, about this case, and you know what she said? She said, I asked her, I said, so what would you do? Because her mom is elderly too. She has some health problems and stuff. I said, what would you do if it turns out that, you know, your mom was put into assisted living or nursing home, and you found out that she wasn't being taken care of properly. She had bruises on her, and they weren't changing her that often, just uncapped, unclean. What would you do? And he says, get her out of there. And I said, you would? She says, I don't care what the law says. I would get her out of there. And if my my mother died in a situation from neglect, she says, I would burn that place down. And I said, really? She says, yeah, nobody's going to stop me from trying to help my mom. I would take my mom out of there. I said, that's right. And that's how you kind of have to take it to a jury and say, what would you do?
Yeah, the jury.
Does that make sense?
The jury is the answer.
The jury's going to be in one of those.
The grand jury. The grand jury finds probable cause, but the petit jury decides the guilt or innocence. So the petit jury, the prosecutor has stolen in most counties. You can't get to the grand jury. Washoe County is an exception because Nicholas has tracked it down so he can get to the county's state grand jury, basically. But because that hadn't happened yet, we formed the People's Grand Jury and wrote the presentment. As the group of us know, there was no reason for this to happen, but it's a gang stalking. What is a guardian?
Right.
Who is allowed to be in charge of somebody else? Not God-fearing people.
Right.
I know
it shouldn't be about money.
Is what?
It shouldn't be about money.
No,
and that's kind of what it seems to be. Everybody wants to be a guardian because it's about the money.
Right.
In
a lot of cases and stuff.
When the FBI took Roger out of that room, and they took his mother into a care facility in California, before she got back to Washoe County, Egan Walker had a hearing with the attorney, the divorce attorney of the sister, and the GAL that was appointed. And the first thing they did was said, how much is our house worth? We've got to hurry up and sell it so we can pay the attorneys. That's the first thing Egan Walker did. You know, it's about money. They didn't care how she was.
Because they're racketeering.
It's about money. It's a money-making business. That's what it is. And as far as Ian Walker goes, you know what? I can't vote for him. I would never vote for him. But he was, believe it, Egan Walker used to be assistant district attorney in Carson City. Then he got transferred over. He moved to Reno many years ago, maybe 20 years ago. You know, he got popped for shooting off a firearm in a public residence when he was at ADA, and nothing happened to him. But if it were us, guess what? We'd all be in jail.
Oh yeah, it's rules for thee, but not for me system.
And he was drunk, shooting off a firearm in a residential area.
Yeah,
so
nobody
he can get away with what he wants.
Yeah, it's like,
and a lot of them like that.
Do we see how slanted this justice system is, folks? Yet are you mad yet? Because I know I am.
You know,
Yeah.
Stewart was a
Like
law enforcement. Stewart, being a law enforcement for 30 years, he knows all the dirt on all of the public servants, the sheriff, the district attorney, their agents on every level. He knows all their dirt, and they want to shut him up. But they don't want to just.
And they're going to try to do it. They're going to try to do it by discrediting him on one little
and making
thing.
him crazy. Yep. They want to make him crazy so he does something worth shooting him for, because they can't just blatantly do it.
But he's not. Everything that he's
it's
pointed out and
logical.
brought to the table, it checks out.
This is
And
where
I
they
believe it does.
because
So they're going to fail.
this is where
They're going to fail.
Well, that's what they do. They try to break you down.
Yep.
And that's what they're trying to do. And it will
One at a
drive you
time.
crazy because to somebody who doesn't know what's going on and they see something like this, they think, oh my God, somebody, and I'm not talking just Stewart. I'm not just talking Stewart. Okay. I'm just saying in general that what they try to do is they try to bring you down and make you appear as though you have mental problems so they can lock you away.
Yep. That's
There's
what it is.
700
And that's how they get away with it.
There's
And they will use
780
anything
other
else.
probate victims on his list of mailing list. 780 other probate victims,
Oh,
and
wow.
who knows how many more than that
Yeah.
from across the country. Because we're not stuck in our boundaries, we get to witness for him. And in any county, we get to witness as people with one voice to say, this is stopping today. You don't get to do that to the next one. Allie was in a house where they were trying to take the man out and put him in a facility. And there were 16 of them standing there when this one attorney comes in to take him out as a guardian ad litem. He says, we got to take him to the care facility because he can't take care of himself. The wife wanted to take care of him. So the 16 people in this house said, well, you're not allowed. We won't allow it. And they left. That's the power of our witnessing for each other. He knew he wasn't doing right, but if he could have done it without any audience, he would have done it by force. But with all of these people watching, saying, not on our watch, no, he left. Not to say he won't come back, but he hasn't yet, because he knows these 16 people are patriots and they're not going to allow it. Right. And that they're not even having paperwork filed. They're just standing in the face of it saying, not today, not this guy.
Here. We need more people to start doing that. I think that's awesome, because that shows the power of the people when we are united, folks. And I think that's a great way. We should wrap it up on that note, because I want to leave our viewers on a little bit of a high note and an empowered note, because I think it's critical that we all do everything we can and everything in our power. And there's a lot we can do, folks. To all those naysayers that are like, oh, nothing's happening, there's nothing we can do, we're screwed. You folks are part of the problem, and that's why we also need to stop bitching about stuff and start doing stuff about it to stop
it. Coming to agreement to who's the target today. Yeah, looks like they do. Well, all of them are guilty of fraud. So just know that going into it. You're not going to find it at the higher level of court or with an attorney. If we don't come to agreements and stop it ourselves, it's going to continue. And I can't wait to get CPS in any one county. Please let it be yours. Please.
Right. I cannot wait to see some of these bastards behind bars. I want to see some serious prison time, some serious treason trials. I want justice.
Thank you. God bless you. And the CPS victims. Let's get this done sooner better than later, please.
Yes.
I'll
absolutely.
be on call 24/7 until we get it right.
Yep. Absolutely. Thank you guys for joining us. We had a really powerful show today, and we had quite a few viewers. So I'm really happy that you were able all to make it and help inform our audience and help to empower people and teach people what's going on here, because this is happening, folks. It is, and we need to fight back.
God bless you all.
I have some audio we can listen to on the way out of Roger. It's a really good. He's talking to the courts. It's actually an awesome recording.
Go ahead.
All right.
Who is that?
Of Roger.
Is that you, Dottie?
Yeah.
Oh, come closer to the mic. We can barely hear you.
I'm sorry. I don't know what's going on with my mic, but I have some audio of Roger that's I think is really good. It's really good audio. I enjoy listening to it. So I figured we could go out with that.
Go for it. I just enabled screen sharing for you.
Okay.
You might want to share your screen on that one, because I don't know if the audio's going to come through on the mic.
Yeah, I'm trying.
You got it.
Okay, this is a statement of fact in a form of affidavit of truth. This is not a criminal case. This fact was admitted upon the record by Clay County District Attorney Spencer Curtis. He admitted that the affiant herein has not committed a crime in the state of Missouri. Therefore, there is no probable cause warrants to issue from any magistrate from this state. The affiant is the victim of crimes, felonious crimes, committed by public servants in this state, county, and others who have violated the constitutional rights of the affiant, who is a natural flesh and blood living man created by God with certain unalienable rights afforded to him by his Creator, our Lord. The crimes include evidence tampering, material misrepresentations, falsifying evidence, perjury and subornation of perjury, forgery, identity theft, and fraud upon the court. For the affiant has never been provided a valid search warrant or arrest warrant, never entered a plea, never taken before a magistrate until after 10 days of being locked up. He never consented or contracted with the county or state, and has provided sworn testimony on the record and filed the following documents upon the record: affidavit of truth, notice of financial liability, writ of error, notice and demand to produce records, and notice of liability. The affiant has requested multiple times an ADA, American with Disabilities Act advocate, the oaths of office, the surety bonds and liability insurance, and statements of good standing. Any warrants issued, all recordings and transcripts of all hearings. To date, the affiant has not received any lawful requested documents or requested rights to be lawfully denied. This is a violation of due process, his constitutional and federal rights. He is being subjected to cruel and unusual punishment and secret star chamber hearings. The affiant must be provided transcripts of hearings and be allowed to file a writ of habeas corpus, as the affiant has made all special appearances challenging the jurisdiction of this court. Appropriateness of the injunction. An injunction, in order to halt this case pending review by a higher court, is an available drastic remedy or option that shall, for cause, issued by this inferior court, as it has shown it lacks standing and discretion to prevent irreparable harm to the affiant. Injunctions are available as remedial and judicial protections of the constitutional rights of the people, granted to prevent the wrongful acts undertaken by the Clay County District Attorney's Office. Specifically, it involves the malicious prosecution without probable cause, as no crime committed, no victim, no injured party, no testimony, no search warrant or valid arrest warrant provided to the affiant. It is likely the affiant will succeed or prevail, as he never entered a plea, never consented or contracted, never committed a crime, requested an ADA advocate, transcripts, a common law court of record, testified under oath, cited case law, the Supreme Court of the United States, and expressed his status a living man and standing constitutional rights. There is no question the unlawful
Nicaragua?
false arrest, illegal traffic, illegal
Where's
search,
Mama and Papa?
and the unjustifiable proceedings have pursued to inflict vexatious and irreparable harm to the affiant. The issuance of this injunction favors the rights of the affiant accused, as he is considered innocent until proven guilty, and no crime or probable cause exists in Missouri. The only crimes are the crimes to conceal or withhold exculpatory evidence, a Brady disclosure violation, and the willful and intentional mens rea cover-up of the crimes committed by many public servants. There is an inadequate remedy at law for without transcripts, witness testimony in my favor, an ADA advocate, open public hearings, and the ability to, with assistance, file a writ of habeas corpus to a higher court with original jurisdiction under the common law and adhering to the rights or Bill of Rights of one of the people known as an American state national stands on the Constitution, Declaration of Independence, Articles of Federation, Northwest Ordinance, Bible, and Federalist Papers, he is being denied due process under the law. As affiant, accused has made all special appearances and challenged the jurisdiction of this court, both verbally and written papers. Conclusion. This valid injunction shall issue as the affiant has stated specific reasons regarding the irreparable harm it will cause, and that he will likely prevail in a court of original jurisdiction or general jurisdiction, as he has challenged said court's jurisdiction in all proceedings against one of the people who stands upon the Constitution and common law. The remedy at law is inadequate without transcripts, ADA advocates, jurisdiction, and a writ of habeas corpus rendered by a higher court with original jurisdiction. And then I put in my certificate of service. I've had it signed by 3 witnesses. That's the end.
What a great way to wrap up the show. Thank you for that, Dottie. That was awesome.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And don't forget to subscribe to all our social media platforms. We're on Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, Telegram, Twitter, and Twitch. Well, it's actually X now. Twitter is now called X, but you know what I mean, folks. So all the links in the descriptions, and we'll be doing follow-ups to this definitely. And also, we're going to be doing our upcoming Friday show with Luann Fleming and Robin Austin. They're back, and we're going to be resuming our weekly shows with them, covering the medical fraud and the stuff that's been going on the last couple of years. So look, we got that to look forward to. We also have quite a bit coming down the pike, where I'm going to be doing an extensive deep dive on the Biden laptop report from the Marco Polo research group report that they sent to the House. So if anybody wants to get a little inside scoop on what we can expect from the House in the months to come, that's the best place to go, because that's the manual they're going from, or that's the report they're getting their information from, folks. So that'll be a good one. Good night, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.
God bless.